my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious It has begun!
Calm down, Doctor. Now is not the time for fear.
Trying to misbehave.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk the month's events in Geek for Friday night, October 7th, 2022. I'm your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac, and here to wrap up the month of September with me is my lovely panel of fellow geeks, fellow YouTube creators, fellow awesome creators in general, fellow passionate geeks. It's not Brenton and Alex. Unfortunately, the month of September has not been nice for any of us on the panel. But unfortunately, or fortunately for us, I was actually able to bring back an all-star panel to be able to help out because Brenton actually had such a stressful month that he basically had a vacation lined up and he said, I'm not canceling it for the podcast. And I'm like, dude, you do your thing. So we have that, and then unfortunately, Alex the Shadow Blazer is not going to be able to join us because he has had a recent death in the family, and he is actually off taking care of his family, his needs, and all that stuff. So joining me tonight is Shay Taree, once again rejoining us. Lovely guest, Shay Taree. But now, I should point out, the recently married Shay Taree. Shay, how are you?
I'm doing good. No complaints. No more wedding stress. Even though I wasn't that stressed, but yeah, no more having to do any more wedding planning.
You had reasons to be stressed. Like I'm not even gonna lie. Like, unfortunately, because like a lot of people actually did ask me about this. What happened with the Geek News movie night? Because Shay was supposed to be part of that, and unfortunately, a lot of that is my fault because I basically got so busy that we already knew you were involved in, what was it, 4 weddings? Where you were, and I think at least 3 of them, you were in the wedding party. So at that point...
in one. Yeah, I was in one wedding. Technically, I'm in 2 weddings, but the second wedding doesn't happen for about a little bit, almost a month.
Okay.
And then the first wedding that I was in April, which was 4 months before mine. So
yeah, so at that point, unfortunately, I got so busy and the window just kept closing and closing. So unfortunately, we just kind of had to say, well, Shay's kind of got her own thing, and we can bring her in at any time to do a Geek News movie night. Let's let her worry about weddings, because that's going to be a big enough stress for her. So I love the fact that a lot of people actually attested that too. You and me having a discussion on Twitter, and therefore you getting kicked off the podcast forever, which didn't happen. It's just that I looked at the months as they ticked away, and I'm like, wait, she's involved in this much stuff? This is not going to work. But thankfully...
Yeah, it was just personal stuff going on.
Yeah, thankfully, we got all that pretty much taken care of, because you did say you have another wedding coming up. So at that point, You've got that going. But also joining us tonight is Rising Sun Reviews. Rising Sun, how are you this fine evening?
Well, I mean, I've just got back from work trip last night, so I'm here. I'm good. Kind of sleepy.
Yes, you've had a very interesting... well, actually, and even your month isn't even done yet, because you still got traveling that you need to go do.
Yeah, my job is having me travel like 3 weeks in a row, so I'm kind of tired, but glad to be here, talk about geeky stuff and video games that I want to make time to play.
Indeed, because, well... the funniest thing about September is we had a bunch of events happen in regards to gaming, as well as in regards to anime. So one of the things that's kind of disappointing tonight is we don't have Alex here to kind of discuss some of the anime stuff, but it's okay, because it just so happens that we have 2 top-notch anime creators who know their stuff just as much, so that at that point we could still cover these things. But without further ado, let's actually get into the top story that we have for the month of September, which was basically our favorite segment, Nintendo Talk. Why? Because we had a big Nintendo Direct happen a couple of weeks ago, and also we had a movie trailer drop literally yesterday. So I'm trying to figure out where we should start from there, and I think it's probably best to start at the most recent news, which would be the Mario movie trailer. So, just in case you guys are not aware, I know Shay is, because Shay actually got to do some homework before this stream, or before this podcast, but Rising Sun, were you aware that there was a CG Super Mario Brothers movie being made?
I had heard something about it. I actually did see the trailer for it earlier today.
Okay.
Not for this. Like someone posted in Discord. I was like, I wonder if this will be decent or look like anything good.
Okay, so that was actually going to be my question on that. So we have a Super Mario Brothers movie being made by Illumination, the same people who make Despicable Me, the Minions. Those guys are going to be doing Mario, and they actually announced pretty close to when Sony and Fox announced that they were going to be doing the Sonic movies. And already a lot of people were like, okay, well, Sonic is amazing and everything like that. So what on earth can you do with Mario? And that's been the big question ever since this trailer, because we've had a few announcements here and there, one of which was a casting announcement that threw everybody off because it announced Chris Pratt as Mario. And so at that point, this trailer had a lot to bring in. Now, if you guys want, I can do a quick refresher of the trailer and just kind of get you guys' thoughts right off the bat, or we can discuss it if you've already seen them.
We can go.
I honestly can do it. I have no problem watching it again. So and the wonderful aspect of editing is that I can just cut it all out. So there you go. This is the trailer that basically has rocked the internet for the last 24 hours at least at this point. We had a lot of big reveals there, one of which was the voice work for both Chris Pratt as well as for Jack Black as Bowser. And so the first thing that we've obviously got to go into, Rising Sun, what are your thoughts on the Super Mario movie trailer?
Visually, it was impressive. Like the thing with Bowser and all the penguins was cool.
Yeah, I've got to say, like, so here's the thing that I actually find funny, and I'll probably pay for with Alex later, because he loves the Sonic movies. He thinks that they are as good as they could possibly be, considering that it was going to be a Hollywood adaptation, and they did as much as they could with the Sonic lore. And I am actually on the opposite end. I'm not saying I hate them, but I basically think they're okay. I do think that they have problems to them, but I think that they are what they were going to be. And so the joke with us a lot of the time was that once this thing comes out, our roles would flip. And I would be totally gung-ho about the Mario movie, and he would be totally negative about it. And I haven't been able to talk too much about it with him yet, but I actually think that might happen. I'm just saying. So I love this trailer. I know a lot of people think that I should have a issue with it, like any kind of criticisms to it, but frankly, I don't. I think they're going in a lot of good directions, especially since it looks like it's going to be another take on the origin of Mario, which isn't really well explained. So that's actually probably a good starting point here, is showing Mario ending up in the Mushroom Kingdom, establishing Bowser as a threat to other worlds, and going from there. But so in particular, Rising Sun, what did you think of Jack Black as Bowser and Chris Pratt as Mario?
So it's interesting. I did not remember that Jack Black was Bowser. It wasn't until I read the comments on the trailer itself that I saw that.
Okay.
And so I think he did a good job as Bowser.
Yeah.
Chris Pratt as Mario is okay. It didn't sound like how I expected Mario to sound.
Okay.
but that could also be like you're changing, going completely different mediums. So
Is that because you were hoping? I'm guessing this is the problem that a lot of the internet has with Chris Pratt's voice. Is were you expecting the Charles Martinet? It's a me, Mario, Yahoo!
probably something more like that.
Yeah.
So I really don't know hardly anything about Chris Pratt. I would not know this was him unless I already knew that.
Yeah, no,
So
I kind of agree on that.
I know.
The funniest thing is like I actually think that they are that I think he's actually emulating the 90s Super Mario Brothers Super Show, which established Mario as a New York plumber. I think he was just a plumber before then. But this actually like went down as a homage in my opinion. I don't know this for a fact, but I think it was paying homage to Lou Albano, who played Mario in that show.
Okay, yeah, that could be then.
Because that was he had a hardcore Brooklyn accent, and maybe that's where they were going, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I read.
So, is that actually what they're saying that they did it for?
That's what I read, that they wanted
Okay.
him to have more of a Brooklyn accent, but I think like Chris Pratt had to get the voice approved before he could actually do it.
Yep. So Shay, tell us, like, what did you think of Jack Black as Bowser and Chris Pratt as Mario?
I thought it was great. I'll be honest.
All right,
like,
all right.
I'm excited to see this movie.
So
I'll be completely honest with you.
Both of you are not so like the Twitter and Reddit consensus is that Chris Pratt sucks as Mario.
I think
So
he sounds fine.
yeah, so you would disagree with that?
Yeah, I mean, Chris Pratt already has a recognizable voice. I
Yeah.
mean, to me at least, I think because a lot of the movies that I've seen, like he sounds like Chris Pratt, but also like Mario literally only said like maybe 2 lines in that entire trailer, so it's hard
Yes.
to base someone's entire performance off of 2 lines that he says, that the 2 lines he says are super short.
Mhm.
And to be honest, like I know a lot of people they had really wanted the voice actor for Mario in the games to be in the movie, and
Which
I didn't even
technically
know
he
who the
is.
voice actor. Yeah, he's in the movie. He's playing other like miscellaneous
Yeah.
characters in the movie, but I didn't even know honestly who's Mario's voice actor was until this
Oh.
moment, and so I'm
do I
just
get
being
to geek
honest.
out
Like,
on Shay now?
like I'm just being completely honest. Like I think because I played the Mario games, but also like when I played the Mario games, I wasn't thinking in my head of like who's doing the voice of Mario. I'm just playing the games. So for me, it wasn't something that I was like, oh, they need to have the voice actor from the games, because when I heard about the movie, I already knew that they probably weren't going to use said voice actor of Mario in the movie,
Well,
especially because like
the
Mario doesn't
unfortunate
say a whole
part
lot in the games.
the unfortunate part is that I love Charles Martinet, and I'm not knocking him. I think he's done a
Oh
great
yeah,
job.
I have no problem. Yeah.
But Charles, I believe, is pushing 80 or 90 at this point. And so at that point, he's getting ready to retire as Mario. And maybe this was for the best, because then at that point, like, he can play a bunch of miscellaneous voices in the movie. And at that point, I'm not saying that this is a passing of the torch and Chris Pratt will forever be Mario after this, but at least it gets people open to the idea that Charles isn't going to be around forever. And so at that point, your cute, lovable Mario is probably going to be voiced in some other way. And maybe that's another thing that it could do here, is that the game continuity Mario is, it's me, Mario, Yahoo! And then the movie continuity Mario is this. Which I think would actually be a great thing, because like it pays homage to the 90s show and the kind of the media phenomenon that Mario became in the 80s and 90s. So I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I get the argument. Like I actually remember a lot of people getting mad when Ben Schwartz got announced to play Sonic, and it wasn't going to be Roger. I can't remember his full name, but the game voice actor who played Sonic. It's not him. So at that point, I get it, but unfortunately, like the only thing I have to say on the matter is be thankful that they brought in the actress who played Tails, because ultimately they could have easily given that role to another actress.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, not just that, but it's also Hollywood. Like, if you think about it, like, in reality, depending on whom they're trying to have the demographic for a Mario movie to go for, like, if you have notable names behind it, voicing it, whom people know, like, people know
yeah,
Chris Pratt from Guardians of the Galaxy, they know him from the Jurassic World trilogy, so it's
and
like,
that's the thing.
that's gonna get butts in seats, and
hmm
that's what it comes down to. And I know, like, some people also had this kind of weird issue too when they did the Detective Pikachu movie, because people were like, "Oh, it's based off
Yeah,
of the game," and people were like, "Oh, I want." Some people were thinking the voice actor or the person that voiced Pikachu in that game would voice Pikachu in Detective Pikachu, but it went to Ryan Reynolds. And then when you heard
hmm
Ryan Reynolds speak as Pikachu, it was his natural speaking voice. Everyone's just like, it's literally Deadpool in Pikachu's body. But
yeah.
it turned out to be a good movie, and people were like, I don't care. Like,
Well,
I'm okay with it. And then thinking about just how Mario in the video game sounds, I don't know if a lot of people would want to hear that voice though for 2 hours.
mm, yeah, the Charles Martinet voice probably wouldn't go that well for 2 hours. And I actually got it wrong. He's 67. So, but still, like in voice acting, that still could be like pushing retirement in a lot of
Yeah,
ways.
and he may not want to commit to a full movie at this
Nope,
point.
nope. And just like Shay pointed out, I love Charles Martinet, but one of the things that I have to realize is that Charles Martinet, compared to Chris Pratt, doesn't have that marquee value that Chris
Mm-mm.
Pratt does. And so at
Yeah.
that point, if you put Chris Pratt in there, who has done the MCU, who has done numerous successful projects over the last few years, he's got way more marquee value, and it makes more sense to put him in the role. And ultimately, I actually like the idea that they did it, because whether people want to admit this or not, Chris Pratt's actually a pretty fucking humble guy.
Mhm.
And so he understands that a lot of people aren't necessarily going to rush to see him play Mario, but they know at least or he knows at least that they're going to give him a shot. And so in a lot of cases, I have no problem saying the internet is complaining about nothing at this point. A giant nothing burger, because he sounds exactly like he should. Especially with that, I will still claim to the high heavens that he's doing an homage to Lou Albano, and that is actually pretty cool for a lot of the demographic that's going to go and see this, which is parents now who were kids growing up in the 80s and 90s with
Mhm.
him as with Lou Albano as Mario. Really quick, I want to ask this because the poster dropped early on, before the trailer hit. It was like I want to say it was up to 2 days ago, and so this was kind of the discussion topic for a lot of people. What did you guys think of the animation style that they were going for the Super Mario movie?
I think it's great.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it went really well with it because you can't like match the games just because it's like so different. I feel like it's like a very like clean style, looks good.
Yes, and
yeah, I
more
wasn't expecting hand-drawn animation. I was not
no
expecting
no
that, so I was expecting something like this.
No, Illumination made it very clear they wanted to do a CG movie, which a lot of people, ever since Super Mario Galaxy, have been screaming, if you're going to do a Mario movie, you need to do it in CG. You need to do it so that
Mhm.
we can have that Mario Galaxy kind of atmosphere. And frankly, this is spot on with what they need to do. I like the toads are super accurate, but I get that some people are having an issue with Mario's face and with Mario's overalls, but he does look true to character in that
Yeah,
way.
I was gonna say his face did look a little bit off to me, but I think it might just take getting used to.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like he can, because we're talking about games versus Illumination's art style, so they can't 100% adapt it. They have to make it their own, and with Mario and Bowser in particular, they picked that, because I wouldn't be surprised with Bowser, and maybe even with Chris, if they did some facial capture for it, because the facial animations that Bowser gives in that trailer they can't have not been done facially.
Yeah, Bowser, I was really impressed with. Mario, not so much, but again, it's like 30 seconds. Once I get used to it, I'm sure it will be fine.
Yeah. The other thing I'll also say is, one of my worries was Jack Black, because Jack Black has. This is going to sound mean to some people, but Jack Black has two speeds: Zero and Jack Black. And so at that point, I was worried that he would not be able to dial down to be able to play a sadistic Bowser. And it looks like the voice directors have done a really good job in reining him back and making him sinister instead of just having him go all out like Jack Black usually does. I've actually been very happy with how subdued a lot of that is.
And I feel like there might be times in the movie where he will go all out, just like when it fits.
Sure, it'll make sense, like when he loses or when Mario keeps on coming back, and that'll be fine. But there needs to be quiet moments for Bowser. That's why Bowser works the way he does, is that sometimes he's just a menacing presence. Much like how we saw with the, I don't even know what that race is called. I'm pretty sure that they're going to have a name in this one, but they've been added in recent games where they're throwing all the snowballs at him, and he's like, okay.
Well, the penguins.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they actually have names, because they were brought in from the new Super Mario games.
I remember the penguins.
So I mean,
from Mario 64, but
that's a meme-worthy moment, by the way. Do you yield? I don't. And then having Kamek come in and destroy everybody.
I also have to say I really liked Toad.
Yeah, no, because see, here's the thing. Like,
that's a Keegan from Key and Peele, and I had to look back up the cast. I was like, who is playing Toad?
Yeah,
and I had to look
Keegan
up the
Michael
cast,
Key.
and I was like,
is that his name?
Yeah, and I was like, he's playing Toad. I was like, oh, he sounds great. I was like, Toad's already one of my favorite characters. So hearing him voicing Toad is great.
We didn't even see 3 characters that we know who the voice actors are in this trailer. And that's actually another thing that the internet got mad about, is at the end, like, I didn't even show the actual end of the trailer, but at the end, there is an Easter egg with Luigi. And he doesn't have, like, we didn't see voice lines, or we didn't hear his voice, so we don't know how he sounds. But Peach wasn't shown, so we don't know how Anna Olivia, I think is her name, we don't know how she sounds. And then more importantly, so Seth Rogen is cast as Donkey Kong in this.
Oh, that's
and
different.
He wasn't in the trailer at all. So at that point, we don't know how he sounds, and he's another one that I'm kind of wondering about, because I'm like, Seth Rogen doesn't really have a voice that I think could be good for Donkey Kong. It sounds to me like they would be going with the same thing they did with the Donkey Kong Country show, where he's just got that weird banana slimmer, kind of voice, whereas he should be kind of a little deep. So that might be a thing.
I mean, this was just like a teaser, so it's like, I'm sure they won't release like a full trailer for like at least till next year. They won't release a full trailer, so it's probably a reason why they didn't release let everyone hear all the other characters, because either they may not have really anything recorded, and people were probably more so wanting to hear what Bowser sounded like and what Mario sounded like over probably a lot of the other characters, and Toad as well.
I think you're right. I think they focused to say, like, people are worried about Mario and Bowser, and maybe even Toad. Which, by the way, I'm gonna once again compliment you on the Keegan Michael Key, because, like, again, people want Charles Martinet to play Mario, right? Okay, how many people remember Toad's voice from the games? Hi, Mario.
Not at all.
That would get grating after 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So the fact that Keegan Michael Key had some elements to that, but then pulled it back and said, okay, this needs to be a real character. I really do appreciate it. But you're right. Nintendo had goals here, so did Illumination. And in my opinion, they hit them. They did everything that they needed to do. Now people will wait until the next one, and then you can showcase Luigi, Peach, Donkey Kong, whoever you want to.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of thing.
We have time, folks.
Yeah, so...
it's like the movie comes out tomorrow, and we're like, we don't know what anything sounds like. not coming out till next year in April.
Actually,
You have tons of time.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I've already gotten a couple of people giving me crap about this. So the release date is April 7th. As people might remember earlier this year, that's my birthday. Why do we remember this? Because Sonic 2 came out on my birthday.
Oh, nice.
And Sonic 1. No, I'm not fucking with you. I actually went and looked.
So
awesome.
are you going to watch this for your birthday then?
I don't know.
Do it.
I don't know. Like, just because I will probably be busy, but who knows what will happen. And as far as my thoughts on it, I mean, it's great. I'm happy that they have a release date that people can look forward to. But I mean, if I go and see this in the theater, it is going to be to take my kids, and my kids aren't quite there yet. They're getting there, but I mean, I just barely got the kids to sit down and watch Zootopia, and then they were done. They didn't want to watch anything else the rest of the day. So yeah, probably not.
It'll probably just be me and my husband when we go watch it. Our cats will stay home.
Oh, you know what? If it was just me and Andrea, I'd be okay with that. I actually would, because that would be a fun thing to go and see. Because even she's kind of a Mario fan, and she grew up a Sega kid. So
I did too.
There you go. So I think
I had Sega and Nintendo.
Well, you were that kid. So what you're basically telling me is you were that kid because you had both consoles and nobody else in the neighborhood had them.
The first console like my brother and I both had together was the Nintendo that had Duck Hunt on it. Like that was our first Nintendo. Then we got Sega Genesis. Then we got Nintendo 64. Then Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation.
See, all I have to say on that is, as a fellow that kid, welcome to the club, Shay. We have T-shirts; they're off in the back.
I love the T-shirts. Actually, it's all thanks to my brother because he was the one that liked the game systems a lot. But then, of course, since there's two of us, my parents would buy 2 controllers, so we would both be able to play. So that's
still good. No, the reason that it happened with me was my dad was an engineer, so we had to buy 2. One for us, and then one that he could take apart.
Oh, there you go.
There you go, right? So I think we've hit the nail on the head with the Mario Brothers movie. This is a solid attempt. This was well worth the wait. But we need to get into some of the other game announcements because, well, another very vaunted franchise got an announcement too. But I have to sweep some business under the rug because even Shay might know this, and Shay might also hold it against me. But I have some crow to eat. So, like I said, there was a Nintendo Direct that happened a couple of weeks ago, and we had quite a bit of announcements from it. One of which I said was not going to be there at all. Because to me, it had most recently had an iteration, whereas another franchise had not. And so I'll go ahead and get this out of the way first. Fire Emblem Engage was announced as a new mainline game at this Nintendo Direct, and also will be returning the character Marth to the franchise in January of 2023. Shay, you might have seen this, and maybe Rising Sun as well. I got into fights with people on Twitter because I was thoroughly convinced that Three Houses had come out, a couple of years ago? And
years ago.
And so at that point, it was still fresh. There was no reason to do a Fire Emblem announcement. Whereas there were a couple of other franchises, I don't know, we're going to talk about one of them in a minute, where they needed more priority than that. And I had to eat some crow because, well, this is me eating crow because, yes, Fire Emblem Engage did get announced.
Yeah, Three Houses was July of 2016, so it'll be 3.5 years.
Yeah, so at that point, maybe next year, it would have been due to announce Engage, but they decided to do it. And you know what? Okay, I'll eat some crow gladly because Fire Emblem is a console seller now because it sold the Switch. Ultimately, Three Houses did sell the Switch. I have to admit that, but I actually will say I'm excited for this, but only because I guess Marth hasn't been in the game series canonically for a long time now. He was only in the first couple of games, or in one of the first games?
The first. So back on the date thing, I was curious, and the time between Fates and Three Houses was just around 3 years, so this isn't overly fast for another series. Like they get one around every 3 years. Awakening is 2013, so.
So I guess the first thing that I want to get
5
into,
years.
just because like I pissed off the Fire Emblem fans on Twitter. So and I am sorry about that. You guys got games. I was wrong. Shay, Rising Sun, are you guys excited for Fire Emblem Engage?
I am a fan of Fire Emblem in general, so I'd say yes.
Okay.
I just learned about it today, so I don't have like full thoughts on it yet. I feel like I need to know more to like know how excited I should be for it though. It actually made me like wish I could go back and play some of the older games, so I'd have to like dig out old games systems to do so.
See, and that's kind of my problem is that I have the Fire Emblem games on my to-do list, but I just haven't gotten around to them yet. So I can't call myself a Fire Emblem fan. But it's as soon as I get there, then I get there. Shay, what about you?
I have never played a Fire Emblem game in my life,
Oh my
so
goodness.
I feel indifferent, but I am
Okay.
very excited and happy for those in the Fire Emblem community who are getting
Okay.
a new game.
And now
Because
you
I know
both
that happiness.
you both can stand as witness that I have eaten crow, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
I'll go
okay.
post it on Twitter.
All right, cool. So at that point, let's get into the meteor announcement that happened here. The sequel to the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild can no longer be called the sequel to the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild because it has now received its own name. Enter Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, coming May 12th, 2023.
Yay!
Holy shit! Yeah, so we finally got some more details. Not a whole lot to work with, but we did get the name reveal, and I have no problem saying that the internet immediately went nuts on that trailer and just dissected it. And there's a lot to be able to gain out of it. A lot of it is very exciting. I'm going to go ahead and be honest. The trailer did a little for me, but not everything. Because I'm being a real stickler for this. I want to see Zelda Dungeons return in Tears of the Kingdom. And we didn't really get anything like that. The previous trailer gave us what might have been a boss, but that's the most that we've gotten. So I will say I am excited for Tears of the Kingdom, but I do want more information. I do want to see actual dungeons because the shrine system I wasn't really on board with. But Shay, Rising Sun, let's go with Shay. Shay, your thoughts on Tears of the Kingdom?
I think it looks great. Honestly, I think I'm excited. I'm excited for all the Zelda fans out there that this finally has a title and that it's finally coming out.
Yes.
Because I know for the longest time, so many people wanted another Zelda game for Switch.
Yeah.
That was the sequel to Breath of the Wild. So I'm very excited. I still kind of get a chuckle. The only chuckle that I have regarding this game is the fact that Nintendo did not show it. It's not really a chuckle. I feel bad. Granted. Let me preface that. They did not show the trailer in England because at the same time they were showing the morning of the Queen's funeral, and because of the title, they were like, maybe not gonna do it. So,
but in defense of that, I actually did like some of the jokes that came out afterwards, which was, oh yeah, by the way, they actually should have shown it in the UK because the Queen was a diehard Zelda fan. So
it made me chuckle because at first I didn't understand why when they first were like, hey, we're not gonna show this Nintendo Direct because of certain instances in England because of what's going on. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then I saw the title for Zelda. I was like, oh yeah, that I get it. I get why.
That, you know what?
Never mind.
UK fans, you got hurt. You got hurt that day, and I do deeply apologize, but. Well, you guys were dealing with your own thing, and it's like you still got the announcement. It's not like it was blacked out.
No,
they just didn't get the live stream. Eventually, they got to see the news with everybody, and then they immediately dug into the trailer. And I actually, what's funny is that I have a WoW buddy who is British, and he was pissed off at this because. We'll get into this. Like the Zelda announcement and Fire Emblem were big on his radar, and then also we'll talk about it in a little bit. But he was also a big Pikmin fan, And they also announced Pikmin 4 at this too. So he was kind of screwed. He was waiting for a lot of those things. And I got kind of mean. I got on Discord with him and I went, F you! I finally beat you to a Nintendo Direct announcement. And it'll never happen again. But, you know, it was a good moment. I will say... Go ahead, sorry.
I said no, but I'm excited. I think it's great.
No, this is definitely going to be a Switch seller. I would not be surprised if, since the OLED model has not sold that great with Splatoon 3, if we actually do get a version of the OLED that will have a Zelda skin to it and will come with Tears of the Kingdom, and that will finally sell the OLED model. That's me, though. So, unfortunately, we don't have too much story based here. A lot of it is basically inferred in the trailer, where it looks like there will be 7 Tears of the Kingdom and we'll be able to go collect them. So that's kind of the hinting that they gave, that yes, there will be dungeons, because these tiers will be the end goal of those dungeons. So maybe, I don't know yet. I did find it interesting, though, they finally confirmed that it looks like we are going to get 2 settings within the game. What I mean by that is we seem to have 2 different Links being shown off. One of which is Link in the usual Breath of the Wild garb, and the other is a Link that looks like he's been back in the Resurrection Chamber. He's in a whole new tunic with a different kind of arm. And so a lot of people are like, okay, so what does that mean? Time travel? Does that mean alternate realities? What? I'm just going to let you guys speculate. What do you think that means?
And I haven't... Yeah, I never got into the original Breath of the Wild, so I feel like there's not much for you to say about this one.
Okay. No, you're all good. Shay, do you have any speculation on it?
Probably time travel.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it would be a good idea, considering that, a lot of people are still wanting to know, this. So this is supposed to be the original Ganondorf kind of thing. And it would be interesting to see a model that isn't mummified out of it. So maybe not. I don't know. The most that we can tell is that there's going to be a bunch of rune modifications that are going to happen within Breath of the Wild. It looks like we're also going to have things like a glider that we can utilize. There's also going to be a lot of skydiving that's going on. So lots to look forward to. But there you go. That's the biggest one that came out of it. Thankfully, though, we have a couple of others, one of which was Pikmin 4 will finally be arriving. I don't know if you guys realize this. Pikmin 3, the last time that thing was seen was the Wii U.
Well, yeah, Pikmin as a whole, it came out on the GameCube originally with the 2 games there. Those are the ones that I played.
But it's one of the few Wii U games that has not made, pivotal Wii U games that has not made its way to the Switch. And I believe they also did confirm Pikmin 3 is not coming to the Switch. So it's going to stay on Wii U, at least for right now. But you will get Pikmin 4 in 2023. And Miyamoto is actually very excited to announce it, along with a Pikmin augmented reality game. Because we didn't need more of those. No. Now, not only are you going to be going out for Pokemon Go to go get your Pokemon, you'll be going out to collect Pikmin.
That could actually be really cool. I don't think I'd play it, but it's still a cool idea.
No, I like it. The only thing I feel bad for is all of the employees that are going to have to deal with all the kids going, we have Pikmin in there, and they want to go into the back warehouse. Nope, can't have them. Sorry.
Maybe just don't have Pikmin spawn there.
or make it so that they're easy to obtain, kind of thing. I hope that they have that figured out, but...
Yeah, they'll probably take a lot of notes from Pokemon Go.
Hopefully
Go
they do.
Had that same problem, but they had more so problems with of course, people were trapezing through people's backyards, but they also had issues with monuments, the Holocaust Museum, where people were going there because they were trying to catch Pokemon. They were like, "Hey, y'all can't make this a Pokestop, and you try not to have Pokemon spawn here.
Please do not make Please do not make the police station a Pokestop, and don't make it where you have to go into the drunk tank to get your Pikachus.
Correct.
That would be
But
that would
I
be
mean,
appropriate.
yeah. So I mean, they'll probably take a lot of thoughts from that. It's interesting to see how that will work. I wonder if it will actually be a successful game, since so many companies have tried to replicate what Pokemon has done, and not all have been successful.
Yep. No, I agree.
So we'll
I'm
see.
excited to see what. I'm not necessarily excited for the AR game. I tried AR. It didn't really bring me in. It just didn't work for me. But I have been playing Pikmin since GameCube. So at that point, the fact that they announced Pikmin 4, I'm absolutely stoked for that. And I think, if I remember correctly, they did announce that there was going to be some kind of functionality between Pikmin 4 and the AR game. So at that point, you will be able to integrate them. And so for the people who are going to play that Pikmin AR game, which there's already a lot of people, I guess, signed up for it, you're going to be able to do both. And to me, that works out for people. That's pretty much all you should ever want. So yeah, final thoughts on Pikmin 4. Do you guys have anything additional that you want to throw out there? Rising Sun, I don't think we went to your thoughts on it.
Oh, yeah, I didn't watch the trailer, but I'm glad to see Pikmin's getting more. I'm not sure if I'll get the game. I like the original too, so I might pick it up. I just don't know if it's like worth paying full price for.
I played all except for, I want to say I played a little bit of Pikmin 2. I think that was on the GameCube as well.
Yeah, it was.
But I don't remember playing a whole lot of it, but I did play Pikmin 3 on Wii U and really liked it. So at that point, I'm just glad it's back, but I'm weird in this regard because I would love to be able to see all of those huge Wii U sales titles come to the Switch, because then more people can get access to them. And in fact, I will actually say, I do think this Direct made one bad move. And I want to go over it really quick and just see if you guys agree. So, we just barely covered Tears of the Kingdom. And like I said, I want to have like big Wii U games make it over to the Switch so they can sell even more. And so I'm kind of disappointed that since we have this huge gap from now till May, that they didn't try to fill it with a Zelda game. And in particular, the one that was rumored before that Direct even started was to bring Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD to the Switch together in one $60 game.
Oh, that would have been cool.
That would have been a great idea. It would have been a great hype game to be able to get people hyped up for Tears of the Kingdom, but unfortunately they didn't announce it. I think they were still hoping that Skyward Sword HD would continue to do that, and I kind of think that hype window has left. But, I mean, feel free to tell me if you guys think I'm wrong. Shay, do you think that would have been a good idea or a bad idea?
I think that probably would have been a good idea to get people excited for it.
Yeah, because especially if you did them separate, then yeah, you could have the complaint that people make is like, oh, well, you're just doing a cash grab. You just want to have people buy Wind Waker HD again. Well, but if you paired them together, then it's two $60 games for the price of one. And
or even make it a little bit cheaper too, and I feel like it might be like more attractive. People like, oh, there's new Zelda coming out. They don't really got into it. Like, oh, I can get these two for a good price. Then they get a sale from that.
I agree. I think if they made it like $40-$50, that would have made it even better. And then a lot of those naysayers could have been detracted in that regard. They're still going to say what they're going to say, but that just would have been a great idea to be able to do. But it was very similar to another rumor that didn't happen ultimately, which was that we were going to get a Metroid Prime 4 announcement, and that the other thing they were going to do as a hype game was a Metroid Prime remake. And that ultimately didn't happen, but that still, to a lot of people, would have been a good idea because Metroid Prime 4 was still a ways off, so you still could have had that hype game to tide you over while you wait, kind of thing. But yeah, just to keep things going along. So those were the big announcements that came from the Nintendo Direct. The other semi-big announcements, I don't want to say that they're small because there was a lot for a lot of fans. So we have Kirby's Return to Dreamland. A Wii classic is being repurposed to the Switch. So yeah, yet another Wii or Wii U game that's being repurposed and brought to the Switch for an even bigger audience to purchase. Octopath Traveler 2 got announced for it. Bayonetta 3, even though it had a release date, we got additional information for that. Plus, it wasn't that clear on the Nintendo Direct, but they also did officially announce that, yes, a physical copy of Bayonetta 1 was going to happen, and it's sold out. So, there you go if you guys don't have it. The biggest thing that I thought was funny came out of this is there's been a huge concept going around with all the big RPG companies this year, where they've basically been taking a vein from Stardew Valley, or in the case the company that makes Harvest Moon as well, Natsume, where they've started to have their own RPG farming game hybrids starting to come out. So, for example, Square Enix announced it earlier this year, Harvestella, and they showed that here on this Direct. They also showed that Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life, the GameCube game that's very beloved, is getting a Switch remake, basically bringing it up to modern graphics, and so they have that to look forward to. You also had Fae Farm being announced in it. There was a lot of games that all were like RPG farming game hybrids. And so the guy from Stardew who made Stardew Valley must be like very happy right now for all the people trying to copy him.
Well, yeah, it's like Stardew Valley is like, I think it's just a single person who made it too.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, at that point, I know that he's working on his new game, which I believe is going to be much more of like the way that he's explained it is like it's Stardew Valley meets Harry Potter. And so, I mean, he's off working on that, but he had to look at all of these announcements and go, wow, I influenced the game industry. And yeah, you did. I don't know how else to put it. But the other big announcement that I think we'll have to wrap up on, because there's just so much to go over here tonight, is Tales fans rejoice. You got Tales of Symphonia Remastered from this Direct. I'm pretty sure Tales fans had lost all hope that any Tales of Symphonia remake was ever going to happen, and you got it this year. So my thoughts, my hat's off to you.
Well, Symphonia is actually one of my favorite games ever. So in a way, I'm excited, but I'm also like, well, do we need a remake? Like, what will it offer that makes it exciting?
That'll be interesting. Yeah.
I've also been disappointed, like a lot of the other Tales games that I've tried, just like being overly convoluted with the combat and just like not able to get into them. And like the reason I like Symphonia is like it's more simple and easier to like wrap my head around. So I hope they don't like mess with that too much.
Well, I think it was a good idea, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but Symphonia seems to be, the way I understand it from like Reddit and Twitter, Symphonia is kind of the US's first introduction to the Tales series. And so the fact that it's taken so long to do anything in regards to it is, like, if that's the case, then that's flabbergasting to me.
Yeah, it was like the first one that like I saw it in like Nintendo Power magazine. I was like, huh, this looks interesting. Got it at Toys R Us and tried it, was really impressed. I think it might be as like the first game of like that complexity of a story I'd ever played. So I was like really impressed me. But even looking back on it now, there's a lot in there that I really liked and think it holds up.
Yeah, no, I'm not a Tales fan, and one of the reasons I'm not is because I'm kind of OCD and I want to be able to play things from game one on. But I'm very happy for Tales fans because you got what you wanted. Every Tales fan I've ever talked to has wanted a Symphonia remake, or a remake or a remaster. They don't care which. So I'm glad that you got that ultimately, but now that just kind of makes me want to rekindle my interest in the Tales series and start up from game one and see what it's made of. So this might be the thing that does it. I don't know. Shay, do you have any thoughts on Tales of Symphonia Remastered?
No thoughts for me.
Okay. All right. Any thoughts on the farm games that I was bringing up?
Not really for me. I played Stardew Valley a little bit. It's kind of fun, but like nothing I would play if it weren't for playing it with friends.
Okay. No, that's all good. So with that, those are like the major announcements. There are a bunch of other announcements that people can reach out to us and ask what we thought of. For example, like the Front Mission 1 and 2 remakes, things like that. Feel free to do so. But we do have some other stories to get to, so let's go ahead and get things. Oh, sorry, what?
I was gonna say there's like two others here that I want to like make a note of quickly that I thought stood
Go
out.
ahead. Go ahead, man.
One is Fatal Frame. I just saw the trailer of it. Looks like a really cool, like horror weird game.
I actually forgot about that one because is that the Wii U one?
No, it was released on the Wii in 2008, but never released in America. So they're like remaking it for the Switch and releasing it. So that one looks good.
Okay.
There's also
and I did forget to mention the Danganronpa.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Creator was making.
Yeah, Raincoat is a new game, and I really like the Danganronpa series. And like anything they've made that I've played, I've been streaming Danganronpa V3 lately.
I've got to say, I'm kind of interested in it too because it's basically like a detective murder mystery. I don't know if Danganronpa works the same way, but I'm always a sucker for a good mystery.
So the way the Danganronpa games work is you have like a bunch of like high school students with like obscene talents of some sort thrown into an environment where they're like locked in there and forced to kill each other to get out. And then the game is like when someone does kill each other, you have to figure out who did it to stop them from getting away. But it also has like a really interesting world that they build around it too.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm excited for that one because I haven't played Danganronpa, but I probably will now that I've seen what is it? Project Raincoat is what it was called.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a weird spelling to it. So, but yeah, I'm excited for that one as well. And okay, so we've got those taken care of. Let's go ahead and move on into the next story that we have here, which will actually affect Shay as well as myself. I'm not sure about Rising Sun, but for those who don't know, Bleach, the 1,000-Year Blood War, is going to be coming out October 10th. So you have 3 days left. Here's hoping you have all your popcorn ready.
I'm excited.
So okay. So you are a Bleach fan. I wasn't sure about that. So
Bleach is like one of the first anime I watched that got me into it. So I'm definitely interested to see more. I feel like it doesn't hold up as well, like with everything else I've seen and stuff that probably does it better. But still, I want to see how the story ends, and there's something special just about Bleach as a whole.
So we actually have a couple of announcements when it comes to Bleach. So we have the October 10th announcement, which the last time that we were able to talk about this on the podcast, I think specifically with Shay, there was no release date yet, and I think a trailer was on the horizon. So we didn't have it yet. But now that we have the trailer, now that we have the release date, I don't know about you, Shay. I haven't seen the whole trailer, but I've seen enough snippets to be excited for this. Rising Sun, Shay, your thoughts on 1,000-Year Blood War? Are you excited for 3 days from now?
Yeah.
Absolutely? Okay.
I just have to decide if I'm going to watch it as it airs or wait for the end. Probably watch it as it airs because otherwise I'll be waiting too long.
Well, you guys are apparently the only ones because the Japanese voice acting industry is already dreading the hell out of this because since you have the huge returning cast in Japan's Bleach anime, a lot of them were actually part of other existing projects and now can't return to them right at this immediate second because 1,000-Year Blood War.
Yeah, that would be like a lot of scheduling conflicts.
And it's actually it's creating some of the biggest amount of scheduling conflicts the industry has faced in a long time. So,
yeah, because I feel like other big shows, like they're going to be coming back after like a year or whatever and can prepare for it. But this has been like 10 years. The voice actors don't care about Bleach anymore. They've moved on.
So the article that we're going off of that Alex provided from Anime News Network, I've actually gone and read a couple of other ones. This has gotten so bad that some of the other Japanese dubbing companies officially hate the Bleach 1,000-Year Blood War now because they can't get their own work done.
Yeah, and like a cast this big too. It's not just like a few voice actors they need.
No, and the problem is that it's not like, oh, well, we can just leave this character out. No. From what I understand, because I believe Shay, it was Brinton that had read the manga. I wasn't sure about you, but a lot of returning characters are going to have relevant arcs within this.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, like you can't skimp on it. And in a lot of cases, if they recast, fans will get pissed. So the anime industry, or at least the dubbing industry in Japan, is, well, I can't say it any other way. You're kind of fucked at the moment.
Yeah, and you have like probably 100 characters total throughout the show. So
Yep. I want to say that the US dub is not as affected, but I've actually seen stuff saying that it is being kind of affected just because
Yeah.
certain key characters, for example, Johnny Young Bosch, they are starting to have some major conflicts.
yeah, well, I feel like it would be the same in the US because you have the same amount of voice actors, same amount of characters. I
But
don't think it's
the difference also, at least you guys would probably know better than me. The US likes to hedge its bets and really tries to find like sound alikes and things like that, just in case crap hits the fan. And so at that point, they try to do that. The Japanese dub industry doesn't really do that because once you have the guy, you have the guy kind of thing. It's like the Disney approach. Once you have Jim Cummings, you just have Jim Cummings and you don't worry about it kind of thing. But obviously, if I've got that wrong, let me know.
I mean, well, not for sure about like the whole dubbing thing, since I think for Japan it's not really dubbing, since it's
No,
in
not really.
Japanese for them.
I'm just using that
But,
term just so people understand.
For like the US standpoint though, it's like sometimes they'll also try to find people who will do multiple voices. Like if they'll play multiple characters. So sometimes that makes it a little bit easier. But I think that just also goes to show about either like how small or how big the voice acting pool really is.
Yeah.
Or stuff like that. I mean, with Japan, they could find like people who do like a voice match so that in case not I feel like most US studios, especially, they only do voice matches if they have to. And that's only if it's like the case of where like the person has aged out of the role. Like, for example, like Aaron Dismuke, when he voiced Al, like he could no longer voice Al. He had grown up, his voice changed. He could not voice that high. So they had to get a voice match for Al, which most people didn't realize was a voice match till way later. Same thing for Awesome Fullmetal Alchemist. J. Michael Tatum started voicing Scar because original voice actor was not able to come back due to scheduling conflicts or due to he wasn't really in the industry much anymore.
Yep.
So it happens. I mean, it sucks that it's causing a lot of scheduling conflicts, but it's also Bleach. So it's kind of like...
Yeah, exactly. It's effing Bleach.
Everyone should have known that if they decided to do the Thousand Blood War arc, like just how big it was going to be. So they were going to need all these people. I mean...
Yeah.
You could probably akin this to like Marvel having to film Infinity War and Endgame because they had so many different characters and so many people they had to work with as far as scheduling is concerned.
And you brought up Infinity War and Endgame. Okay. So at that point you have what? 12 characters overall that are being consistently followed in those two films, and then you add in the ones that got deleted, and now you have like what, 25? Bleach, we're talking 50 characters at least that are all going to have relevant character arcs that people are going to want to see that voice actor return. And in some cases too, because in the Japanese voice acting, like these aren't just jobs in a lot of cases. They aren't either for like Johnny Young Bosch. They're passion projects. So when you get additional work, you kind of want to come back and be able to voice all that stuff, especially in the cases of Johnny Young Bosch, where you actually get, where things were left off in Bleach, the story for Ichigo wasn't completed. And so now Johnny gets to go back and be able to close Ichigo out, kind of thing. And the same thing happens in Japan. These actors get very invested, and so the second you say, oh, we're going to do this thing, they got to come back. I mean, the other example that I've heard is the 2019 Fruits Basket did something very similar in the industry where a lot of people had to start saying no to new projects because they were cast in the Japanese dub and they wanted to come back and reprise the role.
Yeah.
So
I guess in that case, you can't really be mad at the studio can't be mad at anybody because like in reality it's kind of like, well, the only person that you could probably only be mad at would be the voice actor themselves because they're making the decision of whether or not to take on your project along with doing Bleach, because I'm sure if the voice actor did not want to come back to Bleach due to them having another series that they either are already a part of or a series that they really want to do, they would say no and they would find a voice match.
I totally
Unless
agree.
they're like signed into some sort of like contract where they have to come back, which in most cases for like voice acting, the only contract you sign is for the contract for that series for however long that series is
And
for.
that's, I think, what's happening in
And
Japan is a lot of these
yeah,
people,
so
their
it's like,
contract ran out and they want to come back.
yeah,
So,
well, I think it's also like they probably like, I don't know how it works out there. Like if you have an agent or a manager or whatever, they probably were called up and they said, "Hey, Bleach is coming back. They want your character that you voiced is still a part of the series.
yep.
Do you want to come back?" And they probably said, "Yeah."
Hell yeah.
Because if you think about it, Bleach is also like such a long running show, and if they're paid per, not per episode, but like you're paid for a show much longer for a show that has hundreds of episodes compared to a show that only has 12 to 24 episodes.
Yeah, if you
So
like
if you're like thinking at money, then you're like, I'm going to make more money voicing this character in Bleach than I would voicing this character for another project where I'm only guaranteed 12 to 24 episodes, whereas with Bleach, I'm guaranteed, just throwing a number out there because I don't know how long the Thousand Blood Work arc is going to be, but it's like I'm guaranteed to be in like 50 to 75 episodes compared to being in 12 episodes. So which one am I going to take?
And
which one is more
from what
bang
I
for my buck?
understand, it was a lot of volumes. So if you translate that down, now granted, I have been told that according to the new showrunner, because the original couldn't come back, so he has said that they're gonna cut things down a little bit just to not have to worry about things like filler and also keep things consistently going in the story. Because now they don't have to worry about, like a lot of those volumes were written by Kubo to allow for filler just in case it was needed. So they're just going to try and take those fishtails out and make it all work. And that'll probably be better. But I mean, right now I'm looking up a number for 1,000-Year Blood War. And I don't have it confirmed yet, but it's already pretty big.
Yeah, it looks like, based on what I looked up, it's
Volumes
like 208
49
chapters.
through 74.
Yeah, so I see 208 chapters. So assume 2 chapters an episode, which is common. That's 100 episodes.
Yeah.
That's like 10 times longer than a single core show. So that's like, for voice actors, that's a lot of like steady income.
And in a lot of cases, like one manga volume, if this is running off of like early 2000s standards when Kubo was writing it. So what would that be? One manga chapter is an episode.
I think it's around like 2 episodes or 2 chapters per episode.
Yeah, so you're already talking like that's a lot. That's a lot of episodes that could be done, and I you know what I'm gonna say. I think it's actually gonna be a good idea to cut down some of it just because there's so much to go over, and they have to keep things consistent.
I could see it still being like 2 years long, 100 episodes.
It could be,
or close to that.
I don't think it'll be as long as. So some of the speculation I'm seeing on like Reddit is that it's going to be 150, 200 episodes. I don't think it'll be that long. I think it'll be 100, and that'll be it. But
yeah, I feel like 200 like they don't adapt that slowly, or at least they didn't in the past. So
yeah. So the other thing that we actually do need to get into with this specifically, because I think we'll also have a few things to say about it, is since Viz is technically owned by Disney, a lot of people have speculated where is 1,000-Year Blood War arc going to show up, because Viz is owned by Disney, but technically Bleach was being shown when it was, because I believe they said it was being simulcast on Crunchyroll when some of the later arcs were happening. So a lot of people were like, okay, who has the rights? We don't know who has the rights. Can somebody please clarify this? Well, they have announced it, and actually me and Shay have discussed this because I was on a live stream in your chat and we were talking about this because, again, it was Disney, so a lot of the speculation was Bleach 1,000-Year Blood War was going to end up on Disney+. And
that's supposed to be on...
that, and a lot of people were like, well, that could be a bad idea because 1,000-Year Blood War goes into a lot of content that Disney Plus would consider to be not the best to advertise, but I think they found a good way to solve this. So Viz has announced that it will be on Disney Plus internationally, but in the US, which is where a lot of people had the issue with it, it will be shown on Hulu, which also has made Hulu go and secure Bleach on Hulu's platform. So instead of basically just borrowing it from Viz, they have secured the deal now that they will be doing Thousand Year Blood War, where Bleach will be theirs, ultimately. They get to have it, regardless. And I think, honestly, that was a great idea. To me, that was a great idea because nothing really is advertising, especially anime fans, to go want to try out Hulu. And this will definitely do it because I can't think of a platform right now that has every ounce of Bleach on it aside from Hulu. So you can literally go from episode 1 all the way into Thousand Year Blood War, and you would be totally fine.
And I think I saw something on YouTube that Crunchyroll got rid of Bleach, so you can't watch it there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it did.
Yep. So I believe you can still watch it in Japan, but Japanese subs and all that. But the English dub, I believe, no, I think it was the English sub was on Crunchyroll, and it's not there anymore. You can't watch it there. So in a lot of cases, I think this is going to be a good idea because Hulu didn't really have anything reaching out to anime fans, screaming that you had to own it. Now you have it because I know so many anime fans that have begged for Thousand Year Blood War just for closure with Bleach. Now you're finally going to get that closure. So
Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised that it went to Hulu, to be honest, because a lot of Viz's shows are on Hulu.
yes,
So it's like I wasn't surprised. It just kind of sucks for anyone that's in, I don't know how it's gonna work, but I know for like Canada, they don't have Hulu. Hulu is
they do not.
blocked in Canada.
So internationally, and I know with Canada and with Australia, I think was the other big one that was in question. That's why they're doing the Disney Plus internationally. So
Makes sense.
That way you have it.
I mean, not surprised. Not surprised. I mean, I'm sure it's probably gonna piss a lot of people off, especially if they didn't want to get Hulu and if they were just content with having like Crunchyroll. So I can understand that aspect, but hey, that's where like if you got a friend who has Hulu, just use their account and just ask politely and say, "Hey, I only want to watch Bleach. Bleach is gonna be on Hulu.
So what
You have
you're
Hulu.
what you're saying, Shay, is that I should be expecting a DM on Twitter pretty soon of you begging to use my Hulu account?
No, I already have Hulu.
Oh,
so
okay,
you're
all
good.
right, you're good.
Yeah.
I already have Hulu.
No, I have
most
one of those
the streaming services.
I have one of those weird deals where I got Disney Plus and Hulu, but I didn't have to pay for ESPN. So at that point, like I got everything I wanted out of it.
Yeah. Hulu has a decent anime selection too. Like not a huge one, but they have a lot of big shows.
Well, because they also have the deal with Funimation. So like if you wanted a place where a bunch of anime that people might not have seen or don't know about, you have quite a selection on Hulu right now.
Yeah.
Not only just new
Hulu.
stuff, but old stuff too. The only thing that irritates me about Hulu is that Konami did not renew the rights for Yu-Gi-Oh! So at that point, you can't get Yu-Gi-Oh! On there. Instead, they made their own site where you can watch the Yu-Gi-Oh! Episodes. But I, for some reason, because I love Yu-Gi-Oh! That much, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just effing hilarious. And when I need a good laugh, I turn that on. And every like 6 months or so, I would just turn on a random like 5-parter that was in there just because it's freaking Yu-Gi-Oh! And so I'm a little disappointed that that's no longer there, but them getting Thousand Year Blood War is going to be amazing for them. Especially
the only other thing I can
advertising
no,
their No, you're good. Especially advertising their original content too.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I could think of that some people might not like is that for Hulu, you either pay and you get ads or you pay more and you get without ads. So
I have one that Adblock works on Hulu.
Does Adblock work on Hulu?
Yes.
I don't have to worry about it anymore. I actually switched over from Chrome to Brave, and Brave just has a default ad blocker.
Oh,
So,
yeah, I mean, stuff like that.
Well,
I use Edge and its built-in ad blocker, and
okay.
actually, I think it does. I don't know if I use it since switching from Firefox.
I mean, I have an Apple TV, so I don't have the option to not have an ad blocker. So this is just for anyone
Yes.
who has like a service where like you're not on your computer or not on your phone or not on your iPad and not using like the built-in app. You can use ad blocker, but if you're using like a service like the built-in app for Hulu, there's no option to turn off ads. You just have to sit through them. So you just have to pay more if you do not want ads. I decide to pay extra and not have ads because I don't want to sit through a commercial if I don't have to. Unless I'm watching regular
And the
cable.
reality is like, heaven forbid you have to watch a commercial, Shay. At least you know what to do, right? Like, you have a commercial, you go make a sandwich. You go to the bathroom. That's what you do. Like, you have that education. So many kids these days don't.
I thought you just complained about it on Twitter.
What was that?
You just complain about it on Twitter.
Well, I mean, that's another thing that you can do. I totally agree.
Sure.
So yeah, I have to ask this honestly. So, we are 3 days away from this. I think you both have basically said you haven't read the manga, so this is gonna be new terrain for you. So I just
really no, I've read it.
Oh, you've read it. Okay, so you know what's gonna happen. Don't spoil it.
Oh no, I won't spoil it.
But at that point, like, gauging excitement here. Are you guys? So we're 3 days away. Are you excited for 1,000 Year Blood War to start?
I'm excited. I feel like most likely I'll probably be the one person that doesn't watch it as it's airing. I'll probably be the one that will watch it once it's either finished or has gotten a decent amount of episodes in, so I can just binge it. I'm not good with keeping up with weekly like episodes like that unless it's like a show that I know is going to be pretty short and something to look forward to on like a Wednesday or a Thursday night. But when it comes to anime, I've never been one to like wait around every week and watch it. I've always been a binge watcher for anime.
Actually, we've had this conversation where it's just like, if it's short enough, then fine. Then we can watch it episode by episode. But I'm kind of there with you. Like, I'm waiting until there's like 10, 20 episodes so that I don't, like, just in case there's stuff that's just not going to work for me, I can skip it and I can
especially
just enjoy what I want.
Depending on how long it takes for them to do the dub. Like if the dub's going to be simulcasted alongside of the like Japanese release, then maybe. But if it's like where I gotta wait for the dub, I'm probably just gonna wait till there's enough of the dubbed episodes because I'm probably not going to watch it subtitled just because I'm so used to the dub voices that for me to go and watch it subbed, for me, it's gonna be a interesting experience where I'm not going to like it. It's kind of like what I did with Inuyasha when they did Inuyasha Final Act. Like I tried to watch it sub when it first came out. And I was like, oh no, I can't do this. I'm just waiting for the dub. I just waited for the dub and didn't care. But I was like, I just can't. Or like trying to watch Dragon Ball Z subtitled for me, I can't do it because I'm so used to the dub voices and what I hear already.
I mean, I can do the sub of Dragon Ball and it's okay because I did want to see like Ultra Instinct Goku when it happened, so I could tolerate it. But I'm kind of like you. I've only made the sacrifice a few times, one of which was Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, because I really wanted to see that plot go through and see the differences, because I hadn't read the manga. And the other one is if there was a snazzy new Gundam series, I would go out of my way. So like the last one I did was 00, because 00 wasn't being shown anywhere when it was debuting. It took 2 years later, and then Sci-Fi showed the first season, and that was it. So like that was the way I was going to get 00. And for all the people who already want to scream at me, which from Mercury, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. I'm still working through the past Gundam library, so don't at me. I already have way too much to get into. Rising Sun, you have mentioned that you are a Bleach fan. Are you excited for 1,000 Year Blood War?
I am. I'm a bit skeptical about like how good it'll be, but I definitely do want to see it. I don't know if I'll watch it weekly or not, but I'm going to at least like watch the first episode as soon as it comes out, and then we'll see what happens.
I will tell you right here and now, one of the things that does have me excited about it is that they basically in Thousand Year Blood War did a lot of the things that I think should have happened probably a lot earlier, especially in the Arrancar arc, where we're going to see a lot of major characters bankais. We're going to see the full character arc for Ichigo, so we're going to learn like his full origin. So because apparently there's still a couple of other left hooks that with his origin that need to be gone over. We're actually going to see the freaking Quincy's as villains, which was hinted, 15 episodes in? That they were going to be very stern enemies, and now we're finally going to see them.
Yeah, because we like saw the Quincy's they were introduced, and they really did nothing except for Uryu, I think his name was.
Yeah, they gave us Uryu and let us have arcs with him, and then they even teased that he was going to become like maybe a threat to Ichigo during the Arrancar arc, but it never came to fruition because the next thing that came down the pike was what is it called? The Fullbringer arc?
Yeah, the Fullbringers.
Doesn't really approach Uryu that much.
Yeah, like that was like a whole separate thing that they brought in there. It felt like a filler, even though it was canon.
Yeah, it's weird like that, but I'm excited to at least be able to get those bankais, to be able to see because one of the things I will give major credit to Tite Kubo is he has been able to find a way to be able to use the exact same kind of archetype system to create a villain hierarchy that still can get people excited. And by that, I mean, he did that originally with the Soul Society, and then he did it with the, even in the filler arcs, they were able to maintain this, and it was weird, but it worked. But he also had that with the Arrancars, and now you're going to have that with the, oh crap, what do they call, with the Quincy's, but they, Stirnritters, I think is, Shay, is that what they're called? Stirnritters?
Yeah, Sternritters.
So at that point, you have the exact same thing happening all over again, which we already know, like all the stereotypes of it. At least one of them is going to absolutely love Ichigo, and it still works. Each time it works. So yeah, I'm excited for Thousand Year Blood War, but I do know that Bleach is slow. It takes time to build up. And so at that point, yeah, probably wait 10, 20 episodes before I jump in.
Yeah, it's like, remember, it's a long running show. If you like used to the shorter shows that get to the point quickly, you might not like it as much. But still, I just like want to see the story completed, so I don't want to drop it.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts that we want to get into with Bleach before we move on into the next set of gaming announcements? I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head here. So, without further ado, let's get into Tokyo Game Show. So this was the other major gaming event that happened in September, and thankfully there's not too much to go over, but the things that we do have are big. So first of all, Tekken 8 got announced. So fighting game fans rejoice. Kazuya is going to be coming back. You don't have to constantly play him in Super Smash Brothers to get your new Kazuya fix. You are now going to be able to play Tekken 8. Street Fighter 6 also officially announced its full roster, plus a fighting system, or at least a casual gaming character customization system that I think they borrowed from Dragon Ball Xenoverse, but I'm not 100% sure. So you'll have that. We also have the Yakuza series will be officially rebranded in the United States to its actual title in Japan, which is Like a Dragon. So from here on in, we will have Like a Dragon instead of Yakuza, and we will also get an offshoot series within that called Ishin, which will specifically follow everybody's favorite Yakuza, Kazuma Kiryu. Kazuma? Is it Kazuma? Yeah, Kazuma Kiryu. And be able to follow him. We also, for Konami fans, rejoice for the Suikoden franchise is back because Suikoden 1 and 2 are going to be remastered. These are games that were way back in the PlayStation days and are now going to be brought up to current day consoles, so you can look forward to that. Those are kind of the bigger ones, but another one that I want to go over that was at Tokyo Game Show but was announced later for it is that Just curious, have either of you played the Monster Hunter series?
No,
Not
but I have a friend that does.
So I would be very curious as to what your friend thinks now that EA and Koei Tecmo are throwing their hat into the ring, because Wild Hearts, which was officially announced at Tokyo Game Show, but a lot of highlight reels didn't show it. EA Games is promoting a Monster Hunter like game that will be coming out from Koei Tecmo. And so now we have competition for Monster Hunter of all things, which has stood alone for so long in its unique niche within MMOs. So you're going to have that as a challenge, but primarily that's actually a lot of it. I don't know if you've been able to catch any of the announcements from Tokyo Game Show, Rising Sun, but are any of these announcements catching your eye at all?
not really. Most of these games, like I'm not into the series, so don't really care about them.
Okay.
The one that did sort of catch my eye though was the Star Wars one, Star Wars Eclipse.
Yes. So for those who don't know, Quantic Dream, which is currently owned by Sony of all people, um, they announced a while back that they were going to be doing a Star Wars game called Eclipse, and that it would actually, unlike most Quantic Dream games, actually incorporate a lot more action adventure elements, whereas Quantic Dream games have been much more of a cinematic storytelling kind of like
Yeah,
a point and click kind of adventure
yeah, and
deal.
I've never played a Quantic Dream game, but I've like wanted to. Like some of them look really
Same here.
interesting. I hadn't like seen them. Like I looked up their Wikipedia page based off the announcement page, just like see like, oh, who are they? They sound familiar. And yeah, they like did Detroit Becoming Human, Beyond Two Souls, two games that Beyond Two Souls I want to play. Detroit Becoming Human I've heard mixed things about, but
I've actually played that, and it didn't sit well with me, but it's one of those games where I have said on stream, if Andrea sits there with me, I probably will enjoy it more. And I know people get mad at me for saying that, but maybe Shay can help me out here. A gaming experience can be overall improved depending on the company that you're with. And the best example that I will give, and Rising Sun can attest to this, I was very anti Souls before I started streaming, and then I started playing it with Andrea right there with me, and now I'm a diehard Souls fan. I can't explain it any other way than that. So that might be the same case here. This, who knows, maybe this is going to be the game that actually puts Quantic Dream on the map. Unfortunately, all the other games, like all the way back to Heavy Rain, have not been able to do that for them.
yeah, and I feel like I like the idea of the like more cinematic experience because like for me streaming, those are the games I want to stream because I feel like it makes for good content. So like
Mhm.
let's dive into a weird world where lots of different things can happen and experience it together.
So I guess my question is the addition of the action adventure elements going to throw you off? I wouldn't think so, considering you've done the Nier games.
Yeah, like
But
I like or the Autonoma I like Last of Us. I like how that combined the cinematic with the more like action adventure gameplay, so they can be blended together well.
okay,
Will this one be like that? I don't know. If they're like new to doing action adventure, maybe not. But
they are new to it. So, but from what I understand, with the extra funding that Disney allowed them when they got the Star Wars license, they have been able to fill in those gaps.
yeah, so the fact that it includes it isn't a turnoff, but I'm more so kind of curious because it's Quantic Dream and seeing what they've done before. I'm like, okay, what will they do with the Star Wars story with their type of storytelling?
It's interesting to say the least. Like, I'm not holding my breath for it, but it's definitely one of those things where I'll be watching for additional trailers and seeing how it unfolds. I because I think the one they showed at Tokyo Game Show was more of a cinematic trailer. So a full gameplay demo would be very interesting in my opinion. Um, so we have that. Shay, are any of these games standing out to you?
The top of my head,
Okay.
not for me. But,
Well, I mean, at least your friend has something to look forward to with Wild Hearts, like until the
oh
next
yeah,
Monster Hunter game gets into. So,
yeah. I think he's still playing Monster Hunter. I know he was real big on it for a minute. Not for sure how he plays it now. But I'm
I
happy
love
with it.
Monster Hunter. I started since World, and I've actually really enjoyed Rise on the Switch. So this is definitely interesting to me that EA and Koei Tecmo are going to throw their hat into the ring, especially with Koei Tecmo throwing their hat into the ring with a bunch of games this year, because you had Strangers of Paradise was made by them, as well as Wolong Fallen Dynasty is going to be their next. So that's the Neo team's next Souls type game that is going to be based in Chinese folklore, not Japanese folklore, which is what Koei Tecmo is kind of known for because they also make Dynasty Warriors. So at that point, that'll be interesting. The only thing I will say that's a little disappointing to me is Street Fighter, and that is just because the character customization system is kind of weird. Because basically, instead of in order to be able to do the online modes and stuff like that, you're going to have to do the game's world tour mode, which forces you to create a character and go into the street fighting circuit yourself and earn the basically earn the right to be able to do the match like the ranked match system. And I like Street Fighter V's approach, which is just like, go ahead, go play it. So that's kind of dumb. I also have issues with the roster, but all I have to say is hashtag Hoboken, and that pretty much sums it up. So that like if you've ever I don't know how big a Street Fighter fan you are, Shay, but if you've seen the meme of Ken basically talking to Ryu going, "She took the kids, Ryu." Yeah, it's true. And
Oh yeah.
so at that point, hashtag Hoboken is something that I'm trying to get going on Twitter, because the new Ken design just, sorry, it looks like a hobo. And that doesn't make sense to me because he's supposed to be very rich. So I don't know.
Maybe he's a rich hobo.
Well, I kind of have theories as to why they did this, because his father is technically, or he's supposed to be the heir of a massive hotel empire, and some of the game developers have made the comparison that Ken's family is very similar to another family that owns a tower. And I'll leave it at that, and that might be why he has lost all of his money. But I can't confirm that, and I'll just leave it there. But I will also say I am excited to Tekken fans, because Tekken 7 has been out since 2000 freaking 7? No, 2017? 2016. So now you guys officially 6 years later have something new to look forward to, and for fighting game fans, as Shay might be able to attest, new shit is always welcome with fighting game fans, because eventually you just get sick and tired of looking at the models. There's no easy way to say it, so I'll just say it that way. But yeah, so that's a lot of the announcements that we also got. The other thing too, which I'm not sure if anybody on here is a Resident Evil fan, but we did get additional information there that the Winter's DLC for Village is going to end the current storyline. So Resident Evil 9 will not continue the storyline, if there even is one, and we will get new protagonists and everything like that. So if you were hoping for the return of Ethan Winters, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Sorry. Shay is crying in the background, let me tell you. Probably not.
Yeah, I feel like
No.
yeah, that's not a series I have much experience with. So
See, I said Shay, but I really meant Romney, because Romney really loved the Winter storyline, and I'm pretty sure he'll be sad to see it go. But yeah, so I think we've pretty much hit all of this stuff, because yeah, a lot of the stuff is looking really good. I actually found it funny that a lot of games that were being announced at Tokyo Game Show were Souls-like games, so welcome to the new trend. But let's I think we've hit the nail on the head. There really isn't anything else that's standing out to you guys. That's fine, because we have a couple of other things to get into, but limited time. So I actually might take some of these stories off, or unless you guys are that attached and want to actually go over them. I think that answered it. So or we'll go over them as quick as possible. But So the first thing I guess we need to get into is Google Stadia is dead.
Yeah, I heard that.
I heard that, never really got into it, so don't
I
know
was going to
many
ask if
thoughts
you
here.
guys even had. See, you're like everybody else who had never tried it. So, but I had to
Nah.
report it because the podcast actually did cover the announcement of Stadia, and unfortunately, Stadia didn't last long, people. So unfortunately, they did close their offices early, or they will be closing down their offices in early 2023. And the one thing I will say that they are doing that is a good thing is for those who actually did pay into the Stadia service, you will be getting a refund for the games that you bought. That is an amazing thing considering that other services like Amazon have come out and said, once you buy it, we're not going to refund you. That was your call. So good on you, Google. I at least have to give you that. You're going to refund everybody who bought Mass Effect or whatever they bought on there, and that's a good move as far as I'm concerned. But that's really the most that's coming out of it because Stadia unfortunately just never got off the ground. It really didn't. So there's one of the stories. The other one, maybe you guys will have a little bit more to say about, is James Earl Jones has officially retired as Darth Vader and has given the rights over to Disney for a speech software to use his voice to make additional content with Darth Vader in it. So, for example, if people watch the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and Darth Vader, I didn't watch it, but I believe Darth Vader actually does show up. The voice lines that were recorded for that were from this re-speecher that they got. So that's an example of it. They've also said that Darth Vader will be showing up in future Star Wars series like Mandalorian Season 3, I think, as well as Ahsoka. But those will not be James Earl Jones. It will be this re-speech program that is voicing it. And what's actually also interesting about this is that James is still being brought into the process with the development of the character. He just isn't really all that involved. So, with that, any thoughts on James Earl Jones? I believe he also announced that he was going to be retiring from acting too, but the passing of a legend, so to speak. Any thoughts on it?
I think it's great.
I think it's a wonderful idea, especially since James had the forethought to consider that, you know, he's up there in years. And so James has actually worked things out legally so that, you know, when he passes on, because it's going to be happening very soon, when he passes on, his kids will be able to benefit from this work as well, because I believe they will get royalties, or his royalties will continue. I think it's like for the next 10 years or something like that, and go to his heirs, basically, to his family's estate, to be able to still gain money from Darth Vader, from Mufasa, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's like you can set up the license that way. They continue like using the artificial voice to like do his lines, and then like his family still licenses it. So that works out great for them.
Yeah, because the thing is like a lot of companies have found ways to be able to do it without giving any kind of rights or royalties over to other actors, and so James has had the forethought to consider that and say, okay, well, if you want this, then you have to be willing to sign this agreement, and thankfully they agreed. So
To me, it's not just that. To me, it's also it gets rid of the whole like ethical issue that people try and always bring up if you're using someone else's voice or likeness and they're dead. You know, it
I'm glad
gets
you
rid
brought
of
that
that
up,
whole
actually.
ethical issue because like he took control of it. So he's like, yeah, y'all can use my voice even after I'm gone. So that now fans like if or whenever that ever happens, they're not like, I think it's wrong that they're using his voice because he's not here. But it's came out that he's like, oh no, you can use my voice perfectly fine to use my voice with this software. So now no one's going to complain about it, Not gonna lie though, when it was first announced, I like darn near had a heart attack because I misread what they were putting on Twitter. I thought it said the man had died, and I was like, "Wait a minute."
You and me both. You and me both. I thought
But
that
then
was
I
what they
was
were
like,
saying.
"Oh wait, never mind."
No, I was just like, no, not another one. I'm still recovering from Christopher Lee. So yeah, I saw that
But,
too.
yeah.
But I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm glad that you have that viewpoint, Shay. It's just too bad Hollywood doesn't show your open-mindedness. As many actors who are against being able to utilize people's voice and likeness after they are dead actually criticized James Earl Jones for signing such an agreement. And I tried to track down the tweets for it. I know that Chris Evans has made his opinion known on it, and he was not favorable, but he was probably one of the lightest takes that came out of it. And thankfully, people like Mark Hamill came out and said, "Shut up," because it's James's call.
Yeah, I believe it's James's call. I think it does raise an interesting question because, well, in reality, none of us know what's in the legal agreement as far as like what they can and cannot do with his voice. Because I'm sure that they probably iron that out because the last thing you want is that they're using your voice, but they're saying something that you yourself would not want to have ever said in your voice, even if it is just for a role. But if he's saying something that's distasteful, then people would assume, okay, well, James Earl Jones is saying this because it is his voice. So I'm sure he probably has some sort of legal thing of like something written along the lines of like, I don't want my voice to be used if you're saying any such,
we would hope
like
so.
anything that's going to make my legacy look bad for you to be saying certain lines or uttering certain words or whatever. And so I think that could be why some people have an issue with it is because they may not know how the voice itself is going to be used. Like he could be dead and gone, but they'll use his voice to say something like that's super critical that causes a huge uproar, and it's going to be James Earl Jones's voice that said it, even though he's dead. But they're like, you're putting these words, quote unquote, in this man's mouth, even though he didn't technically say them and you're using a software.
I agree.
But I'm sure he probably, legally has put something out there. So I can see where both sides of the coins are of like, it's a stupid decision because you don't know what they're going to say, but also from the likeness of like, for him to have been able to make that decision because then he can control to some aspect what they are and what they are not allowed to say using his voice compared to them like doing it anyway after he's gone and him not having no say so or control over it.
So I'll share with you one of the concerns that I have with it, but it easily could have been handled. I have not been able to figure out if it has, but from what I understand, the contracts that they specifically worked out will have to be renewed at some point, renewing the agreement. So yes, James is signing them now, but eventually what would happen is, let's just say he passes, so it renews in 5 years, and he passes on 3 years from there. So his executor of his estate would then sign. So very much like J.R.R. Tolkien, where when he passed away, his son Christopher was handed over the rights to the estate, and he got to make decisions in regards to the Lord of the Rings, who got to adapt it, where did the books get sold, etc. And James, I believe, has similar things put into his contract. That's fine. Like, you can't predict what's going to happen, but I do have a concern in that regard because depending on how long that contract goes, its renewal period could eventually involve somebody that maybe is more third party to James's interests. Because I think right now the executor of his estate is either his wife or his oldest child, I want to say. And so at that point, like, the oldest child is going, like, it's like Christopher Tolkien. He's going to know the intent meant behind what James is doing. But eventually, what's happened with Lord of the Rings recently is Christopher Tolkien eventually passed away, and then it was handed over to his successors, and his successors didn't really know that, and therefore all the movie companies had to do was offer them millions and millions of dollars, and they were just like, oh yeah, totally do that. Oh, you want to have the Game of Thrones guys be able to write a series? Yeah, totally. Go ahead and do that. Oh, you want the rights to Silmarillion? Oh, you don't want the rights to Silmarillion. Okay, well, don't worry about that. And that's where it can get a little bit more complicated. It's one of those things that makes me kind of sad that we don't get to see the contract that James signed, because that is the concern that I have. If he has one of those contracts, then eventually, you're right, we could have a moment where he says something that is completely out of character, and the ones that are supposed to approve that don't care that he said it, because they're getting paid a big fat paycheck for him to, I don't know, just as an example, drop an F-bomb where he normally wouldn't.
I mean, unless they put something in the contract where that contract cannot be changed.
And,
like,
and that's
it just
kind of
needs
what
to
I'm
be
hoping.
re-signed, but like, you can't change the stipulations within this contract.
That's what I'm hoping ultimately.
Like, unless they did something along those lines. So I feel like, and granted, none of us are going to ever see whatever the contract is. I mean, and even if we did see the contract, none of us know like lawyer speak within those contracts for us to be able to actually like read it thoroughly. I mean, none of us don't even read the terms of service or terms of agreement anytime we get a new phone. So it's like, do you really think we're going to sit there via Twitter or Instagram and sit there and read through James Earl Jones's contract and seeing what it is that he actually signed without us either A, picking it apart, or B, talking about it and not knowing what we're actually talking about because we don't understand lawyer speak or however they put it within that contract.
Yeah,
but all I
think
I can hope is that the only thing I hope that they put within that contract is that, and James Earl Jones, he's a smart man. I mean, as long as he's been in the business, I'm sure he's not going to do anything stupid, and he's probably doing it at this moment because he still does have a sound enough mind for him to be able to make these decisions on his own without him being led down a particular path by people who don't have his best interest at heart, which unfortunately some people do that with elderly people. They'll do that for their own benefit, but he's still of sound mind at this point in time. So I'm sure he might probably put in there, or at least I hope he put in there that like, hey, however long this contract is for, that you're able to use it for, here's who has to re-sign it over. These are my terms. My terms are not to be changed at any point. No matter who is signing this agreement, they are not to change anything within this agreement. And it is to stay how it is supposed to be, how it's supposed to stay. And if they try to change it, they're not allowed to.
Okay.
No one is allowed to.
Yeah, I agree.
This is a lifetime contract. He doesn't have to re-sign it.
I agree with you. I hope that's exactly how it was. And frankly, James is business savvy enough that he probably did that. And you're right. It was probably a good idea to do it when he is the age that he is, and he isn't dealing with crippling dementia or anything like that. I'm not wishing that on him, guys. But ultimately, the fact that he did it now when he is of sound mind and body, he knows what he's agreeing to. He knows what Disney's asking of him, because they were the ones that ultimately approached him to be able to do it. So at that point, he was business savvy enough to cover his own butt. And so that's why we have the agreement the way that it stands, and I'm very happy about that. Rising Sun, is there anything you want to add into James Earl Jones's agreement to retire the voice and allow for a vocal encoder to be able to do Darth Vader from here on in?
Not too many thoughts on this directly. I'm just curious if we'll see it more in the future for like other people with well-known voices starting to do this as they retire.
There are
or stop acting.
a lot of iconic voices, and I mean, one in particular that I know didn't do any agreements like this was Dan LaFontaine, and that was just because he literally just kind of had the viewpoint of like, everything dies. So at that point, I know that everybody loves the movie trailer of this summer. Eventually, Dan LaFontaine was going to have to bow out, and so he just like, well, yeah, I'm not going to do that, because eventually you're just going to have to get used to new things, but we have tons of iconic voices that are coming up to that chopping block right now. I mean, the other
Yeah,
ones,
so
the other ones that I was thinking of in Star Wars alone, like Frank Oz is probably coming up there, and Jim Cummings, and maybe we could see similar agreements happening.
Possibly. Or people try and do voice matches as
Yeah,
well as
yeah,
using it that way, or even using like, don't know how well this would work or how it works as far as like rights are concerned, but like if they take movie clips and just extract the voice from there and then just use voice clips from movies that have already been made with their voice already. So it's not like they had to redo anything. They're
yeah.
just taking the sound. That's it. And they're just remastering the sound and just using it at that point. I mean, yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens, or some of them might just say, "Hey, find a voice match," or "Hey, the character just dies with me." That's it.
That too, and
Yeah.
actually that's another thing that's happened in Hollywood too. Is like a lot of characters just can't be used anymore because it's in the contract that nobody else can voice the character. Now we're not talking about like iconic characters like if Mark Hamill dies, Joker dies with him because that wouldn't make sense. But if it's a character that was literally invented with that actor in mind, and they literally built that character into who they are. So, for example, William Shatner could probably make that claim because James T. Kirk was built around William Shatner, and he fit the bill, and then he made the character his own. Uh, a similar thing could be done with Darth Vader, although I think George Lucas would have a few things to say about it, because he did have the Darth Vader concept before James ever came to the table. But you do have a lot of actors also saying like, yeah, once I'm gone, it's gone. You can't you
Yeah.
can't do anything else with this
I
Yeah.
think
character.
I
Well,
think it's also a difference too with the fact that for James Earl Jones, he was just the voice. He wasn't underneath the helmet. So
Yep.
I think there's a difference between you playing a character where they're just using your voice and you playing a character both physically and it's your voice. Because when you're
Yep.
playing a physical character, that's completely different than them just using
Agreed.
your voice.
No, you're
So it's
absolutely
like
right.
so it's kinda like 2 separate not 2 separate things, but it would be a very weird sticky situation when you have someone like Mark Hamill and then you have, James Earl Jones. His voice is legendary among so
Mhm.
many people. I mean, like, he was Mufasa for The Lion King. Like,
Yeah, like the
his
only
voice is
example I can
there,
think
but it's
of
like
that has the same rights as James would probably be Peter Cullen with Optimus Prime. But
yeah. Or either
But
that or
Peter's
I
already
would
said he's
say
not going to
even,
do it.
like or, like, probably, like, even, like, Jim Cummings because he's voiced so many different characters
Jim
over the
Cummings
years,
with
like,
Winnie
even
the Pooh
him
would work.
yeah. So, like, he same thing, like, anyone that has done a character where they're not physically in the role could probably do this, and
Mhm.
the character and even regardless, even if they don't choose to continue with the voice of the character, like, whoever has the copyrights to it, if they decide to redo it, they'll just recast somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
It won't be the same, but they'll just recast somebody else. And then, like, especially if it's a voice that has been redone numerous times over the years, like, they're not the only person that has ever done that voice. They'll just say, "Well, we'll just recast it." But with, Darth Vader, since he's the only one that has done that voice for Darth Vader for so long, it
Yeah.
would be difficult to recast
It would.
for
And
Darth
and
Vader.
and ultimately
That's
George didn't want to do it. I know that John Favreau when it was being proposed that um in Rogue One Darth Vader would show up, he was actually against bringing back Vader just
Mhm.
because of the fact that it would be a difficult recast and everything like that. But really quick, we've cut off Rising Sun so many times, so I want to be
I'm
able to give you that
sorry.
time to finish that thought. Sorry.
yeah, just the overall thought it has like, what is the legal framework for handling this? Like, if there's a character, like, to what point could a company like make like an AI voice that sounds kind of like the original voice actor, but not quite, and like get away with that? Because like the voice actors, they don't own the copyright to the characters,
No.
but do they own the copyright to their portrayal or not? Or how does that work?
The argument that James is making is portrayal. And so at that
Mhm.
point, especially considering that And part of this was George Lucas's fault because he never wanted to recast it after James. So at that point, like even when episode 3 was happening and somebody said, well, do we really want to bring James back to voice Vader, or do we want to give, like for, because there were actually people saying like Hayden should come and voice Vader, because then at that point it would make sense with the prequels. And he still was like, nope, we're going to bring James in, because he is that voice. So the argument that James is making is based off of his portrayal. Nobody else has done that portrayal other than him. So, and I probably should clarify this really quick. This contract is solely on Darth Vader. It is like, I know I brought up Mufasa and a couple of his other roles. These do not pertain to those. Okay, he doesn't have the rights to those. He doesn't have the claim that he does here. It's just with Darth Vader that he can do this.
Yes, I guess we'll see, like, as this happens with other actors or they're considering it, it'll be very interesting to see, like, what happens from there. Because this is, like, one small case, probably doesn't matter too much in the grand scheme of things, but it sets a very interesting precedent.
It does. And ultimately it can be interesting how it gets molded in Hollywood, because there, like Shay is pointing out, there are other legit actors that can make this claim with other characters they played. For example, Peter Cullen with Optimus Prime. He could make that. Peter's already said he's not, from what I understand. Once he retires, and they've already started to kind of ingratiate people into playing Optimus Prime, either the way that he did or doing their own thing, kind of like Gary Chalk did with Optimus Primal. So, like, he's always been of the opinion that, like, okay, once you retire, you hand the torch over. Like that's the way that it goes. Frank Welker kind of has that same viewpoint as well. But James does have an interesting claim here. Nobody's ever played it. Nobody's ever played Vader. So at that point, yeah, he can do this, and he can do this specifically for his own family's security, which is why ultimately, I know a lot of people are like, well, he just wanted to have the rights. No, I actually do think that the reason he did this was because he's getting up there in years, and he wants a legacy to leave behind for his family. That's it.
Yeah. I'm also curious on if... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, I think this might be the first time where an actor is like making it so that their character can continue to like be created and be like more stories about them being made after they're gone. Yeah. Because like you have like royalties and all that, but that's for stuff that's previously been made. He's saying it's up future stories about Vader.
Exactly. And frankly, that might be for the best, because I know a little bit about the respeecher that is being used for this. It's not like it can completely adapt James Earl Jones's voice, where like, it's not like they can go and have him go to the bank and go, I'd like to make a withdrawal, please. It's not that complex, but it is at least able to do lines like, it is your destiny, kind of thing. And so at that point, as long as they don't do anything stupid with it, now, Disney has made stupid decisions in the past and currently, so they could, but I don't think they will, because at least when it comes to James Earl Jones and Vader, they know what they have. They know they have lightning in a bottle, and they're not going to wreck it. So, like we were just, like me and Shay were just barely saying, you're not going to hear Darth Vader drop a mother effa. Okay? It's not going to happen. He's not going to drop an N-word. He's not going to drop anything controversial. They're going to keep him saying the same lines that Vader has said over the many series. It is your destiny. The Emperor foresaw that this would happen. And that's what they'll keep it to.
Yeah. I'm also curious on whom approached who. Like, I have a feeling they probably approached him about it and said, hey, we would really like you to continue voicing Vader. And that's probably
the way I
was probably like,
understand it, Disney approached him because the respeecher company out of, appropriately enough, Ukraine, they approached them to be able to do a business relationship. It wasn't specifically with James. It was just like, we would like to be able to do this business relationship. You have a lot of iconic voices. Maybe we can work something out. And so Disney, I think, just did kind of that general talking to all the older voices and seeing what they thought, and maybe just James saw the writing on the wall and went, okay, I'll capitalize on this.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. And like, you kind of mentioned before, like in reality, like James has a very good point with the fact that he's the only person that has ever portrayed Darth Vader as far as the voice of Darth Vader is concerned. And it would be a different story though if, George
Agreed,
Lucas would have like had someone else voice Darth Vader. Then he would not have a standing of saying like, oh, I've portrayed him. And so that's why like probably other like voice actors, unless it's a character that they themselves have only ever voiced, like since its creation, I have to say that they have voiced that particular character is the only way they would have standing. But like if that character was created and they weren't the only ones to have ever voiced him, they would not have any standing. So if they're just taking up a role, a mantle of playing a voice that has been played numerous times, they wouldn't have a leg to stand on because they're like, we've recasted before. So
actually, you know what? William Shatner would get that, Shay, because I completely forgot. He voiced James T. Kirk in the animated series. So at that point, he owns 100% everything Kirk. Aside from J.J. Abrams' continuity.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a J.J. Abrams one, which
he probably could make a similar claim because he did the animated series.
He would probably do similar claim for voice.
Yeah.
But probably not for like likeness as far as like a physical character because people have already played James T. Kirk.
Yeah, he'd have a harder argument there.
Yeah, he maybe could do voice, but it would also still be very hard though because depending on how long that animated series went on for, like if they're not still doing it currently, then he wouldn't really have much of a standing because they're not still doing it compared to Star Wars, which is a franchise they're still doing and they're still putting Vader in Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm still not. Yeah, I don't know if you would have standing either, just because like the copyright, like who, like the company pays them like do this acting for us. Who then owns the acting afterwards? Is it the people who paid for it? Is it the actor who produced it?
And that becomes gray territory because the issue is like let's just say for the sake of argument, back in the Lucasfilm days, James owned it. That doesn't matter anymore because who owns Lucasfilm? Disney.
Well, if he owned it back then and Disney bought Lucas, well, they didn't buy what James owned.
They probably did though.
Unless like
they would have to talk to James though about it to get his share. Because if he still owned one character, they would have to talk to James and say, we want this character.
I get what you guys are saying, but remember back in the announcement where they said that they had 100% of it. So at that point, what I'm saying is logic would then assume is that, yes, they did approach James. And James said, okay, you can do this, but I'm pretty sure, again, he's business savvy enough. He put his own sanctions in there. But at that point, if that's the case, because again, I'm making a theory here. If that's the case, then yes, he was approached. If not, because Lucas could easily have just said, nope, this is just general Hollywood practice. The company owns the rights to Darth Vader and all that, and James doesn't really get a say in the matter. That's ultimately what could have happened, but then easily could have been negotiated in the prequels. Or renegotiated in the prequels.
Or maybe they just did this like as like they weren't sure how it ended up, so they figured, okay, let's make everything legit so we can keep doing this.
Yeah,
to avoid legal headaches. Because even if they are legally right, that's an expensive thing to find out in court.
Well, and the other thing too that has to be considered, and I promise we got to wrap this up because we actually have a discussion that I want to bring you two on as well. The other thing that has to be considered, and I've seen it bounce back and forth quite a bit ever since the sequel trilogy, is that by the time the sequel trilogy had come along, like the prequels had happened, and characters like James Earl Jones had been able to secure pretty cushy contracts to be able to come back and reprise the role. And I don't think it was Mark Hamill that was making these arguments, but I think it was like Harrison Ford or Carrie Fisher basically saying that their contracts weren't as great. But part of that also could have been they were negotiating with Disney, not with George Lucas. And George Lucas just loved James. Like we know for a fact he loved James. And he probably worked out a really cushy contract for him. So ultimately, that's how it could have happened. But unfortunately, like we could easily go down this rabbit hole, and we already have, but we still have one more thing to go over. So, yeah, ultimately it's sad. I think we can all agree it's sad that James will no longer physically be playing, or not. What's the word? Vocally. Let's use vocally. He is not going to be vocally playing Darth Vader anymore, but at least you will still have the iconic voice for future iterations of the role. So at least you have that, and as long as they don't do anything stupid with it, you'll be fine.
We'll see what happens.
Exactly. But the other thing that I kind of want to get into, because this is so we had a discussion here that I wanted to be able to specifically get into with Alex and Shay, but frankly, Rising Sun, you actually have a stake in this as well, because last month we did a or not last month, but a couple of months ago, we did a discussion on Netflix live action anime adaptations and how, well, they haven't been the best. Being able to adapt them or being successful or any other ways that we could discuss that. But believe it or not, I've actually gotten a little bit of flack for this because we only tackled the live action adaptations, and yes, they have the record of being bad, but we didn't tackle the animated adaptations of it. And I know that Shay and I got again when I was able to go into a stream and into our chat, we talked a little bit about live action Yu Yu Hakusho, live action One Piece, but and from what I've been able to tell, you haven't really touched the animated adaptations, have you, Shay?
I think the only animated adaptation that I touched of Netflix was Seven Deadly Sins.
Seven
I
Deadly
was
Sins. Okay.
Yeah, I had watched that for a little bit, but there are other like animated series. I can't think off the top of my head any that I've like
Okay.
watched.
Because I'm kind of where you're at. I didn't watch Seven Deadly Sins, but I have been watching another anime adaptation that has happened, which is the Adi Shankar Castlevania. Because that's been a project that's been bouncing around since the 90s, to be able to have some kind of Hollywood adaptation, and I wanted to see if they were going to do any justice to it. So at that point, the discussion here was comparing the live action adaptations team with the animated adaptations team. And at that point, this is going to be a little bit more difficult because I wasn't sure how much we were going to be able to walk into it with. Rising Sun, have you seen anything on either of these?
Sorry, what were those? I was trying to look up what Netflix had.
So
made.
basically, I'm talking about the divisions themselves. So at that point, the live action ones have had the live action Full Metal Alchemist, have had the live action Death Note that they did, live action Cowboy Bebop, all of which have been kind of financial failures when it comes to like earning profit for Netflix. So much so that Cowboy Bebop got canceled. Versus their anime adaptations, which have been like, you said that you'd watched a couple of episodes, Shay, but from what I understand, Seven Deadly Sins has done fairly well for Netflix.
Oh yeah, it's done really well.
So at that
I
point,
think it was
you
one
have
of like their
that.
first series.
You have that. Plus, I know that the Godzilla movie adaptations have done well. Plus, Knights of Sidonia has also done very well for them. I believe that's a manga adaptation. To be able to do it. Plus, like I said, you have Castlevania and a bunch of video game adaptations that are actually coming out very soon. I didn't know half of these were happening. So, like, I knew about Castlevania and I knew about Devil May Cry, but they also have a Tomb Raider animated series in development. They have a Splinter Cell animated series in development. They have an Onimusha animated series in development. And also, if people don't know this because it's already out, Tekken Bloodline has come out and has done exceptionally well on the Netflix platform, enough so that it actually pissed off the guy who played Wesker in live action Resident Evil, because how dare something be more successful than live action Resident Evil? I know, it sounds weird, but apparently he got mad about that. So the questions that I basically had is, if you guys have been watching these things, in your opinion, like, which one is doing it right? because
So
the most that I could talk about is financially, which is obviously the animated one's doing it right.
yeah, because like with the anime itself, like a lot of anime, like someone else makes it, then Netflix just like buys up the international streaming rights of it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of the issue is like, financially, the animated adaptations are doing better because they're, in my opinion, and maybe I'm smoking crack here, and you guys can tell me, but they're making the better choices when it
Well,
comes to these adaptations.
well, no, what I'm saying is like a lot of the things you see on Netflix like aren't necessarily Netflix shows. They just like buy up the distribution rights to them.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at on my anime list, like what are the like which ones are like exclusive to Netflix,
So I mentioned
or of those are anime,
Seven Deadly Sins, so that's one of them.
which
Baki the
no,
Grappler, I think, is specific to them.
Seven Deadly Sins was Baki is Seven Deadly Sins was originally elsewhere. Then Netflix like bought the rights to it. It's not. I don't know if I would consider that like a Netflix anime.
Okay, fair enough. I believe they have the streaming rights to it though.
I think it's also might be elsewhere.
Okay, it could be elsewhere. Maybe they have it for North America, and that's it.
Let me see.
It definitely makes me wonder. But while you're looking that up, Rising Sun. So Shay, in your opinion, like, is it safe to say that live action or animated is doing it better than the other?
I would, I mean, if based off of financially or what more people are going or leaning towards is the animated versions, but to me, that's just kind of like a no-brainer. Just
Mhm.
in all forms of not media, but just all streaming services. I mean, even with Crunchyroll, like more people are going to gravitate towards the animated stuff than they are towards the live action versions of the same exact show.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, you know, Netflix is probably going to stick with both the animated one, but obviously they're probably also of course going to dabble in the live action space as well because it's going to widen the reach that they're looking for because if it's animated you kind of know who the target audience pretty much is going to be is
Yeah.
anyone who's already into like anime and stuff like that. But for live actions you're touching on more than just people who already like the animated version. You're gonna get people who aren't the biggest ones into animated shows and they're gonna want to check this out and see what it's more about. I mean, that's kind of like what happened when, even though Netflix did not do the Bleach live action, when the live
No.
action of Bleach got onto Netflix and the Bleach anime was on there during that time, a lot of people watched the live action and then went and watched the Bleach anime to
Yeah.
kind of like see what would happen
And
next.
I think ultimately that's what Netflix wanted to happen is that they were trying to make live action Death Note to get people to watch, because remember they have Death Note on their library. So at that point they wanted to make live action Death Note to get people to watch Death Note. And then at that point maybe be able to fuel another project. But one question that I would actually specifically like to ask you, Shay, is could one of the problems with the live action division be their pick in what they want to adapt? Because the stuff that they're picking, for example, Cowboy Bebop, or in terms of like their newer adaptations that are coming out, like Yu Yu Hakusho and One Piece, they're picking projects that are going to be really difficult to adapt, really expensive to adapt, and ultimately just don't have that much of a success ratio because there's just not enough people behind them. So basically asking like, is that the reason why? And ultimately Alex actually made a good proposal with this, that maybe if they chose stuff that actually fit live action better, then they could avoid that.
Mhm. I mean, even if they chose shows that could be adapted more so to live action, people are still going to pick it apart regardless because they're taking a show that many
Right.
people already love animated and trying to make it live action.
Mhm.
But also, I hate to put it this way, but also it gets kind of boring. I mean, that's to me, that's playing it safe. where you're and granted, I know a lot of people are huge fans of like the Rurouni Kenshin live action because they did do that live action very well. But
Yes.
also, it's ultimately a samurai film. So, of
And those
course,
aren't hard to
it's
do.
going to be done well. It's not hard to do. But
Yeah.
it's like if you're in Hollywood and you're a director and you have a show that you really love, and it is going to be a little bit more harder tech-wise to be able to make it come to life, you're going to want to take on that challenge. And like, unless, once again, if Netflix wants to play it safe, they can. But there's also only so many animes that can be done well live action without it being like samurai or just a regular fighting tournament. And even if you take a film or an anime that's just a tournament, there's still going to be elements in there that are going to be magical. Like you could say, oh, I'm going to do Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z already has those magical elements. The same thing with Yu Yu Hakusho. And so in reality, there's never going to be a safe anime to make live action because all of it is meant to be
I agree with you
fantasy. All of it's meant to be magical. It's all meant to go into that imaginative space, which is so much easier to do animated because you can make that happen because you're drawing on paper or you're inking on paper.
Yeah.
When it's live action, it takes more technology. And I think obviously as technology evolves, it's probably going to get a little bit better. So to me, it doesn't come down to the shows that they're choosing. To me, what it comes down to is how they're writing it. It's the scripts that how they're deciding to adapt it. And also sometimes like it's two sides. They're trying to adapt it for people who are already fans of the animated show, but also trying to bring in fans that have never seen this show in their life. And they have to try and find that happy medium of how to do that without, getting fans of the show mad who
which is already
seen it.
Difficult to do considering that a lot of these shows, like they already borrow into tropes within one another that only like when Tite Kubo and is it
Oda?
Masahiro Ota, when they write One Piece and Bleach, they are writing it. They're writing it for the otaku that they're dealing with back home, and so at that point, and they're writing it so niche into it that it's very difficult for a writer to then expand upon what they're trying to do.
I think they would have to be honest. They'd have to take kind of some sort of like notes from all the adaptations that have been done of comic books, because that's also something that like has been done fairly well, because you have people who have never read these characters' comic books in their life, but yet they're huge fans of the franchise cinematically, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's people who have watched every single movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but have never picked up the comic book themselves because they're like, I don't know where to start, so on and so forth, yada, yada, yada.
And that
I
is
think they have to
definitely
kind of
something to consider.
And so that's something that they have to try and replicate, because they've been able to do it fairly well, where they're taking people who are fans of these characters who have read these comic books and bringing them to life on screen and having the happy medium of both people who've never read the comic books and people who are just being introduced to these characters on screen, and them both loving it. Yeah, granted, you're gonna have people who are fans of the comic books getting mad or whatever. That's gonna always happen. It happens with book adaptations. It's gonna always happen with any form of print material that's put on screen. Not everyone's going to be happy. It's not going to be done 100% well. But I think when it comes to that, that's where people who are trying to take on anime have to kind of take a note out of that book.
Yeah.
And I think what they do is they underestimate it, because it is anime and it's a form of medium that's not used to here.
Nope. But the other thing too that I also wish that writers could also do, and I promise we'll get to your Rising Sun, because the other thing that I also think has to be considered is, like, you brought up the Kenshin adaptation, the Bleach adaptation, and how those were happening. And I tend to agree with some of your arguments that the fans tend to care way more than they should about a 100% one-to-one adaptation. Because in a lot of cases, I mean, for crying out loud, we have scripts being pitched of My Hero Academia. There's no way you're going to be able to have a one-to-one adaptation of My Hero Academia and it making sense. It's just not going to work.
Even manga to anime is never done 100%.
No.
I mean, there's so many, and so like there, you're like, hey, manga to anime also is never 100%. So you can't expect it going from anime to live action for it to
what
even
be 100%. What I was actually getting to is that in the case of those live action Kenshin adaptations and the Bleach adaptations and things like that, they hit the same, from what I understand, they hit similar criticism, specifically the Bleach live action adaptation, because of Kubo's drawing style. Like, there were no women that were really going to ever fit into that reality, much less men that were going to fit into that reality. And one of the things I think that ultimately benefited the live action adaptation of Bleach was that the writers and the director basically said, yeah, we can't do that. We have to make do with what we have and be confident in what we have. And that's ultimately what led, because the way I understand it, live action Bleach was far more successful. Kenshin, I know that a lot of those movies have done fairly well. And part of that is just because they kind of embrace the concept. Yeah, we can't 100% adapt it, but we can work to what we think, or to what strengths we think we can work with. And that ultimately makes it into a product that both newcomers as well as returning anime fans can enjoy.
Yeah, I think that's where the fans come in too. Like, fans also have to understand, and I think that's where I'll be honest, where fans don't understand, because they automatically, or we as fans automatically hear about a live action and automatically start criticizing it before even hearing anything about it, seeing anything, so on and so forth. And I get it's because we've been burned in the past from other live actions.
Sure,
but I mean, take a look at anyone who's like read any book that's been adapted into a movie. You already know going into it, it's not going to be like the book. You're just there to watch these characters come alive on screen and see what they did with it.
What you're saying is that comic book fans, and maybe even video game fans, need to learn something from the book fans and be a little bit more jaded?
I'm not going to say be a little bit more jaded, but just be a little bit more open, or just be a little bit more, I guess, understanding that what you're going to see on screen is not going to be, I mean, I guess don't automatically think that, oh, it's a live action, like it's automatically going to be like terrible. Like, already go into it knowing in your mind, this movie is not made for me. Like, it's made for me kind of, but it's also made to make money and to get new fans into liking this. I mean, look at like Harry Potter. There's 8 movies based off of 7 books. I've rewatched the Harry Potter movies several times over, and each time I watch it, I'm like, yeah, this movie is not bad. I said I like it. I said, but there's definitely stuff that they took out that I wish could have been on screen. But it's like, going into watching that movie, I already knew it wasn't going to be a 1-to-1 ratio of the book. And so it's like, I think that's where like comic book fans, kind of video game fans, but definitely also anime fans have to kind of sit back and be like, hey, let's just see. And if push comes to shove, if you don't like what's on screen, just watch the anime. It's not going away.
No kidding. I think that there are different reasons for the jadedness to happen with both of them, but I do kind of agree with you. You do kind of have to check your brain at the door, check expectations at the door, and ultimately, for a lot of that stuff, you also need to I do think that a lot of fans would benefit from hampering their expectations just a little bit, especially when you're talking about outlandish properties like, say, My Hero Academia, One Punch Man, things like that, because you're already going to have some translation issues, and you just kind of have to expect that some translation errors are going to happen. But in my opinion, as long as the writing's good, it can overcome that.
But let it be cheesy.
But we have cut off Rising Sun a couple of times, so go ahead, Rising Sun. Sorry.
So I feel like anime fans in a way are like spoiled because typically when an anime adapts like a manga or a light novel, they generally try to stick to a pretty loyal adaptation. Small things will change, but a lot of them that we're getting now, they like take the manga, that's a storyboard, they just take that story and go with it. Light
Yep.
novels they tend to compress a little bit, but same thing. Like see, like okay, what are all the story beats? What are the big moments with all the characters? And like okay, put all that in the anime that we can. Well, with the live action ones, it's like they take okay, what's the general concept of the world and the characters, and then they create a mostly new story based off that.
Mhm.
So in a way, it's like completely different way of adapting. You also have like the fact that if you like have 100 episode series, that's not going to work into a movie or even a series of movies. So there's no way to do a
No,
fully loyal adaptation unless you're turning it into a TV show. And if you're going to do that, well, you already have an anime. Why make another TV show when you already have a TV show?
exactly.
Or you know how to cut it off, because I think that's where Bleach did very well. Is that they didn't try to adapt
you're
every
right.
single arc of
Fullbringer
Bleach.
cut
Like they
things
stopped it at Rukia being taken back to Soul Society, and
exactly.
then made people like be like, oh, like this is actually really good, because they literally only adapted maybe the first 15 episodes maybe of that
Yeah,
entire
like the
show.
first start.
Like
Yeah, and I haven't seen the Bleach live action, but like if she's just like been, if it's like before she's like kidnapped back into Soul Society, well, that's a terrible place to end it because you're saying like there's more story. Are you ever going to adapt it? If not, then I feel like that's like that really
but
goes
it
against the
made
series.
it made people go back and watch the anime so they could see what
But
happened. So it was like a double-edged sword of like, oh, like are they gonna make more? But also like, hey, this is actually an anime, so I can go and watch
And
season
a,
two.
but
a
I
similar example I would bring up is the live action Attack on Titan. Is that the first movie was serious, like it actually did try to take its source material seriously and try to treat
No,
it
it
as
was bad.
such. I mean, yes, generally it was bad, but what I'm getting to is that movie two basically just took the bombastic elements and tried to, in my opinion, tried to make some kind of a comedy out of it, and it didn't, and it fell flat in that regard too, because ultimately they just, considering the premise that they thought they had, that's the best that they thought they could do, and so they went for some weird Metal Gear knockoff, and
Yeah.
that's ultimately
They
what they
changed
decided to do.
characters,
Yeah.
got rid of characters, and I think that's where that went wrong.
Well,
Where I
did
was
they
just like,
change the origin of like all like if you've read any or not read but like seen any of the later stuff, like none of the Titans are who they're supposed to be, from what I understand. Like they basically
they
made a bunch
they
of
got rid
Japanese
of
generals
Levi.
then.
People were like,
Yeah.
who is this character that's supposed to be Levi but isn't Levi?
Yeah, exactly. And most of the characters, from what I understand, aside from like what is it, Misaka, are pretty much all betrayals in some way or form.
She was also bad too, because she
Or
wasn't
Mikasa.
actually supposed to be like she was supposed to be a badass, obviously, like in the anime she was,
Oh
at least
yeah,
the
that's
first
right.
season.
She's not
But
that.
they made her not, and she was just like this little girl that was chasing after Aaron the entire time. And I'm like, what? I was like, oh no.
So what I'm generally getting from you guys, and I actually think is a good thing to be able to have everybody learn, is like, when it comes to latest anime adaptation or latest video game adaptation, fans just tend to take it from the Hollywood perspective of the writers are going to get it wrong and all that. And ultimately right now, Hollywood writers are basically going, well, the fans are never going to trust us and all that. And basically what you guys are saying is there needs to be some kind of go between the two factions in this case, and through them together they'll be able to make something
yeah,
overall work out of it.
they need to like
And I would
find.
agree with that.
It's like they need to find a reason for it to exist. I don't know if you've been following the Cyberpunk Edge Runners anime that came out recently.
No, but I've been told to. Like that and Arcane have been brought up to me numerous times.
So Cyberpunk, the anime itself, on the one hand, I think it's completely overrated and not as good as people say it
Okay.
is, because on its own, it's like really not a good show. It relies on the Cyberpunk universe as a whole. But if you look at it as an addition to the Cyberpunk universe, it like does a great job of like setting the
Okay.
stage and like another exploration of the world beyond the game. I haven't played the game, so I can't comment on that.
Neither
But if I
have
look at it that way, I'm like, okay, that's an interesting way to do it. So instead of adapting, like they're not adapting the video game into a story, they're like, okay, we're in this world, let's tell another story here.
Mhm.
And it might be that's what an adaptation can do, is like expanding the story in a way that, like, you can't really make another game to do the same thing that the anime did. But okay, let's tell another story in a medium that fits that story.
And that
And I
makes
feel like,
sense. I mean, ultimately, Shankar did something very similar with Castlevania, where yes, he had a plot to be able to go off of. He had the plot of the third game, but I mean, what's the plot of a Castlevania game? Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, go kill Dracula, boom, you're the end. And so at
yeah,
that point, what he basically did was, okay, I'm gonna set up the prequel of that, like basically saying like how Transylvania gets trashed by Dracula in season 1. Season 2 is the game, and season 3 is what happened after the game, along with season 4.
yeah. It also, like, I feel like the going from manga to anime, that like makes sense to keep like the story the same, because
Yeah.
it's a different medium, still telling the same story in generally a similar way. But if you're going to like anime to live action or game to live action, like, you need to have a reason you're doing that. And if you're just telling the same story again, it's not going to be as good.
Yeah, no, I agree. Ultimately, yeah, I think you guys have kind of hit the nail on the head that there's definitely a lot of things that can be done. And I like the fact that even though we kind of expanded on the concept, we stayed within Netflix and said like, okay, this is something that needs to happen, and this is something that needs to happen. So, ultimately, I like what's happened here. Where I know that I put in questions like who could be doing it better and all that. I actually like the premise that you guys are giving, is that it could be better on all ends, and frankly, we all as human beings can always find something to improve upon. Whether
Yeah.
we are the writer of the show or whether we are the guy sitting on the couch watching it. So
Yeah.
I
I mean,
like
because
that.
even in Japan, they haven't done live actions good. So it's not like it's just an American thing. Like even live actions made
Yeah,
in Japan have not been great. So I think it's just
yeah.
overall that is difficult. But it
Because
does beg the
I've seen
question.
I've seen live action Sailor Moon, and I'm not gonna say it's
Yeah.
horrible. It. I mean, it's doing the job,
I
but
mean,
it
it's
doesn't come
kind of
across
like,
well. Same thing with Cutie
I mean,
Honey.
I think it just kind of begs the question of then would it be easier if they went from manga to live action compared to manga to anime to live action?
And that's an interesting question to make. Where
Because
like,
I
can
feel
you
like
do it?
even then they'll still run into the same exact issues because you're
Yeah.
still taking something that's multiple volumes and trying to put it in an hour
Yeah,
and a
and I
half.
feel like if a manga is big enough to warrant a live action, it would also warrant an anime first.
Well, that's kind of the model right now. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
you think
No,
that would be
I'm
the way
saying
it
like if
goes?
someone went against the model, because even if they went with the mangas long enough to like beg to do an anime, they still could do a live action. I mean, that's the same thing they've done with books. I mean, they went from
Agreed.
print to live action. So you could take manga and go straight to live action, but you still might run into the same exact issues.
Yep.
Which is possible, but I mean, it just kind of begs the question of like, would that be a better model to go with as opposed to going with the from anime to live
And in
action?
that regard, Shay, the only thing I can tell you is exactly what I've said on numerous adaptations, whether they be video game to movie, movie to video game, or anything like that. It all has to be taken on a case by case basis. Which is the other thing too that also kind of irritates me within the industry too, is that everything is generalized, and unfortunately it's the age of the internet. You can't really avoid that, but it really would help if people did take it from the context of each case is different, each writer's different, each director's different, and each viewer has gained or lost something different from said anime, said video game, whatever. So at that point, unfortunately, though, we're sitting at about 2.5 hours, and actually, I do have a bedtime, unfortunately, because I'm an old fart, unlike the two of you, and I have to go and have my pudding before I go to bed. What can I say? So as much as I would love to keep this conversation going, hell, you want to know what I'd love to do as well is put this table back together, but add in Alex and Brinton just to see where they actually sit on the arguments that you guys are presenting, because it's just kind of sitting here going, oh, this is actually kind of eye opening in a lot of cases too. So first of all, I want to thank you guys so much for offering the insights that you guys have at this podcast, especially with this discussion. It is great, and I might actually have to do another table on this one Shay hears this a lot from me, but that's just because Shay does bring up good points, and so does Rising Sun in this regard. So, unfortunately, though, I do need to wrap things up. So, first of all, I would like to thank all the people that are listening to this and that have joined us for it. We very much appreciate you guys taking the time to be able to listen to this. And if you have additional questions that you want to be able to ask the panelists, or since they are both wonderful content creators on YouTube, I'm going to start with Shay Taree. Shay, how do they access your content, and what can they expect?
Yeah. So you can find me on YouTube, obviously, and on Twitter and all other social media sites. What you can expect from me is a lot of like manga discussions, anime discussions, K-pop discussions, because I'm into K-pop as well.
I have
So
noticed
just
that recently.
stuff all over.
That
yes,
and
my hobbies.
and fanfics.
Yes, my hobbies are wide and large. So my channel is kind of all over the face. I'll be honest with
Can
you. I don't really haven't.
Can I just ask this question? You've gotten into fanfics a lot. Have you started writing or something?
Not really. I've
Okay.
always been into fanfics.
All
It's
right.
just always been like an ebb and flow. I've been into fanfics since like probably like 2008.
Okay.
I've been into fanfics.
Okay.
So like it's nothing new, but it's just it ebb and flows.
Okay. Yeah. The reason I ask is because a lot of writer friends that I have, like that's like one of their big passion projects, is that they like going and looking into Elseworld stories or original works, and they go to places where fanfics are plentiful and go check them out.
It is fun. I highly recommend.
All right. And Rising Sun Reviews, how do people access your content, and what can they expect from you?
Well, I'm on YouTube. Haven't posted there as much lately. I've mainly been streaming on Twitch. Basically, if I find a weird game I think is fun to share, I will stream it. I've been streaming Danganronpa V3 lately. We'll get more into that probably tomorrow, and whenever I have time.
Weren't you also
YouTube...
doing Cyberstein? Is that what it was called?
No, there was AI Somnium Files I did for a while that I finished that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing a sequel to that when I decide to buy it, because that one was really good. Maybe do a video about that on YouTube as well, but that will take a while because YouTube videos take time, and I don't have much of that. Also on Twitter, where I will tweet things that amuse me. And yes, come follow me there if you want to see that.
Okay, and I also need to advertise this because Rising Sun should take a lot of pride in this, in the fact that he has actually become a game designer in his own right, because he actually, if you don't know this, Shay, and you need to play this game, it's actually really great. He developed a Taco Bell dating sim, and I'm partially responsible.
Yes, Drac gave me the idea, and I decided to go with it, and he regrets his decision since then.
You good sir, I do not regret my decision, because look at the product that came out of it. So, I mean, at that point, it speaks for itself.
Yes, I linked it in the chat. I will have another game coming out at some point. I need to work more on that, though.
Yes. Yeah, if Shay's not familiar with this, we got into a discussion on a stream of, like, I think it was, the KFC dating sim?
Yeah, I was, like, telling you to play it.
Yes.
And you said you don't just play the Taco Bell one. And like, there isn't one. It's like, we'll make it. It's like, okay.
We'll make one. And you're like, okay. And lo and behold, Shay, he did it. And I'm just so proud of him. He went off and did it, even though I didn't expect anything. And I'm just so proud of him.
No.
But yeah, so I'll also put the link in there, because I will advertise that to the end of my days. But yeah, Rising Sun actually has some interesting streams, and some of the games that he pulls out, like Somnium Files and stuff like that, are actually kind of fun to be able to go and see. Because one of the things I also like is Rising Sun lets the game be the game. He doesn't, like, unlike me, where I'm playing Dark Souls and being an idiot, and I'll have constant deaths and whatever. You just kind of sit back, you let the game be the game, you let the discussions happen, and you don't really ever try to, like, unlike me, where I'm just sitting there going, well, that guy's being an idiot. You don't really do that. So at that point, if you want that genuine experience, then that's the place to be able to go get it.
Yes, I'm trying to have fun experiencing the game with anyone who stops by. And if no one stops by, I'm okay with that too, because I have fun with the game. So I win either way.
And then if people want to be able to reach out to me, obviously you guys are on my either on my YouTube channel or on the RSS feed itself, which at that point you will have links that be able to go to it. I do live streams. I do commentary on whatever events are going on in geekdom, as well as this podcast, as well as me and Andrea just barely started up doing episode by episode reviews of series. Specifically, right now we are working on The Mandalorian Season 1. And eventually we will get back to things like Rising the Shield Hero Season 2. And maybe if Rising Sun's a really good boy at the end of this year, he might get us to do Twin Tails.
We'll see when the random anime comes up on my list again.
But Shay, he has to be a really good boy, right? Shay's like, I'm not even touching this with a 20-foot pole.
Shay's smart.
Yeah. So
I've been told.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, you guys can check out my content there. But more importantly, please check out the RSS feed, which is geekynro.libsyn.com. That's where all of this stuff is hosted, and where actually we have tons more plans in store. For example, we actually have our next Geek News movie night coming up, and even though Shay was not able to be a part of it, Shay will be a part of it in the future. I'm already working things out to be able to do specific series, and maybe bring people like Rising Sun and Shay into it. I cannot begin to tell you guys how many requests I've gotten for Bleach 1,000 Year Blood War. And I can already tell you guys, I'm probably not going to be able to get that fresh out, but it would be interesting to be able to walk into that with a bunch of Bleach fans and just ogle about what it did and what it didn't do. So who knows? Maybe if you ask it enough, I'll work things out with Shay, Rising Sun, Brinton, who knows, and do Bleach 1,000 Year Blood War. That actually might be really fun to go do episode by episode. But they're also, if you guys want to be able to support the podcast, you can do so on the RSS feed, as well as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, and Player.fm. And of course, if you guys want to submit stories you guys would like us to talk about or submit feedback on the podcast, you can do so at geekyweek@gmail.com. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us this wonderful month, wrapping things up in September, especially with all of the weird circumstances that have happened this month. I'm at least happy to get this in the books. And I'm especially thankful to both Shay and Rising Sun for being able to come and help me out when so much is going on, especially for my fellow panelists. I mean, I'd have you guys on anyway, but the fact that you guys were able to step in, and in some cases, I mean, Shay, you got given what? A week's worth of notice, and Rising Sun, you got given a day. So at that point, like, with such last minute notice, being able to come in and just give your opinion on stuff that maybe you hadn't been following throughout the month. So personally, thank you. And I'm pretty sure the other panelists appreciate what you've been able to do as well. It is great to be able to bring you guys on, and we're going to have to do much more of that, especially with you two. So thank you so much to both of you for showing up. Thank you guys so much for listening to us. And of course, we will be back next month for even more Geek News, reviews, and opinions. So for myself, for Shay, and for Rising Sun, we will see you guys next time.